electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. In other words, no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With the Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drink 1 pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/Table Talk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is, if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/Table Talk. Today's episode is brought to you by First Detachment. Are you looking for a supplement brand that truly understands hardworking athletes? Look no further than First Detachment. 1D's real world experience is what I would consider, and they consider, battle tested. I have known Justin Harris for pretty close to 2 decades. And if there's anybody that I trust with nutritional and supplement needs, it's Justin Harris. If you guys have followed me and have followed the podcast, you pretty much already know how I feel about the supplement industry. For me to get behind any brand, I have to trust the brand and I have to trust the person both. And I'm pretty sure you guys all know why. When it comes to creating formulas and putting products on the market, and there's nobody that I trust more than Justin Harris. While I love all of their products, I'd suggest that you check out the Field Rations and WTH first. Go to www.firstdetachment.com and use the code TABLETALK10 to save 10% off each order. The link is in the description. Marek Health is a premium telehealth platform specializing in hormone optimization and preventative medicine. Are you looking to optimize your health in and out of the gym, improve recovery, sex drive, and quality of life? Have you tried speaking to your health professional about this and have gotten the cold shoulder, stereotyped, or just told it's part of getting older? You just go to marekhealth.com/Table Talk, and you can create your own lab, or you can take labs that we've had set up for them, which are based upon the same labs that I've been doing over the last 15 years. Or you can use their guided optimization. With this, they'll put you in touch with a patient care coordinator, which is actually pretty cool because you get to sit down and speak to somebody that can understand what you're looking for from hormone optimization and the preventative medicine standpoint. After that conversation, they'll determine which labs that you should and which tests you should have done, and then from there, get the labs done. They'll review those labs with you and put you in touch with one of their hormone optimization specialists that can determine which supplementation that you should use over the counter or prescription. marekhealth.com/Table Talk. The discount code is Table Talk.
This episode is brought to you by elitefts.com. Founded in 1998 with the primary aim to live, learn, and pass on. Please help Elite FTS support this mission by smashing the like button, leaving a comment, sharing with a friend, and thinking of us for your training needs. If you can put it in a gym bag or load weights on it, Elite FTS has it.
What's going on? I'm Dave Tate. We are broadcasting from the middle of the Elite FTS weight room, where the underground still thrives and you're part of the crew. It's time to sit down, keep it real, and cut the bullshit. Welcome to Table Talk. What's up, guys? We're back with another episode of Table Talk. Today, my guest is Dan Grigsby. Do you want to be Dan or Danny or Daniel? What do you like best?
I go by Danny. Yeah.
So we'll go by so Danny Grigsby, right?
Yeah.
Now on my notes here to introduce your stats, I got 13-time world record holder, but this was before this last meet.
No, I just adjusted.
So you adjusted it. So the 13 is legit.
Yeah.
Right. So 13-time world record holder, best lifts of 771, 457, 1074.7. I'm giving you the 0.7, right? Because it matters. 2303 total at 268. So what I want to do is, after listening to yourself over your podcast, there's going to be some areas that we're going to touch on that I'm going to cut you off a little sooner, because if people are fans of you, they've already heard a lot of the things several times. But if they don't know who you are, I think it does have some relevance as we walk through there. I'm going to jump a little bit out of order, because I normally start with like, how do you start lifting and all this other stuff. What I want to do, because it's fresh in your mind and you just competed, right? I heard your little meet recap on your Instagram, which is like 30 seconds. So I want to recap the meet that you just did. All right. So before getting into the numbers, why did you decide to go 242?
Because so at the American Pro, which I'm going to do in late October this year, I'm going 275. In the meet after, I'm most likely going to go 308 again. And I figured if there was a time to experiment and try it, it would have been this meet, because there's not a lot on the line. It's not a high level meet. So it was just kind of like, let's see if it'll happen. My body weight was a lot less. Normally, like I said, at the last meet, I weighed in 267, 268-ish. But this prep, I was 260, so 6-7 pounds down all prep. Because I didn't know how my body, I've never done a water load plus sauna and all that, and adjusting carbs. I was glad my body weight was lower, just to play it safe. The cut wasn't too terribly hard. In the future, I know I could probably be 3 to 5 pounds bigger during prep and still be fine. But like I said, I didn't know that before. So I wasn't about to be high 260s and try it for the first time and kind of test my luck. You know, if I don't make the cut, then that would piss me off. So yeah, that was the reasoning behind it. Because obviously I knew I was going to get the deadlift at 242. I mean, my PR is 1070 plus and it's 1,003. But I did it more so for the total, because I wanted to see if I could replicate or even do slightly more over 2,300 at 242. You know, I'll just go over real quickly, just kind of like a recap. So at the meet, my plan was to squat 790 to 790 to 800. But on my second, I think I told you this already, but I botched. I set too far under the bar. So when I went to unrack it, like I was unstable. I was already falling forward. And when I got into the hole, I felt my calves cramping because I was so pitched forward. Surprised it didn't fall on my face. It was that bad. So I retook it because I just wasn't confident at that point.
That was 777, right?
Yeah, I never failed the second attempt, but it was a learning experience. Because like I said, you know, now I know, you know, like if it's a technical error, you could still go up a little more, but you just got to be cautious. And then on bench, I opened with 435, then went 462. Realistically, I wanted 468 to 470 for my third, so it wouldn't have been too much more of a jump. But an issue I've been having the last year is I've struggled with instability at heavy loads, and then the bar sinks, so the press command is a lot longer. On my opener, it was fine, but with the 460, it was like between 1 and 2 seconds, and then I lost tightness because I just couldn't hold it that long. So once again, like there's some things I took away where I realized what I need to do on bench, because obviously same result. If I keep doing the same thing, the same result, nothing's going to change if I don't really get to the root of the problem. So once again, that was frustrating. And going into deadlifts, I opened with 96 because my plan, if I had squat and bench what I told you, I would have needed around 1,040. So I was going to go 96 to 1,040 and then maybe 1,050, 1,060. But once I realized the total was going to be way less, I just played it conservative. I went 96, 1,008 to chip the record, and then 1,030. The second and the third were just attempts that I knew I was going to get under any condition. So there's no, and it kind of the name of the game is I want to keep consistently breaking all-time records. So it's kind of one of those things where you could add more weight, but then next time around, I already know I have one or so in the bag, you know? It's kind of like if I would add a ton to the record, but then it will be harder next time. I've seen a lot of the greats in the past. They would chip it by a kilo or two. They obviously, like you said before, back then, they were getting paid per attempt. So obviously, you'd rather get the safe bet and know you're going to get the money and solidify the record than to take an inherent risk going 10, 15 kilos when, you know, you could get it, but you also can't. And then it'd just be a bummer not to get it at all.
Where did the, because I didn't look this up because it wasn't on open powerlifting. I don't think this is on open powerlifting yet. Just that meet. So where does the 2242, which is the total, where does that put you?
I believe it's second. So now I'm second all time at 242 and 275. At 275, Zach Myers currently holds it with 2320, 2320 or 2325. I don't remember. It's the 2320 range. Yeah, and at the American Pro later this year, that's going to be a crazy, like for a while, the 275, like a few years ago, wasn't a very competitive class, but now, you know, it's really getting up there. Like I think at that meet, we're going to have to be pushing high. I'm talking high 2300s. If we're both on our A game, and even all the other people are going to be there, even if you get 2300, that doesn't guarantee you'll be top 3. Like, that's how competitive it's getting, which is good. Cause I remember 5 years ago with Yuri Belkin, 7 years ago, Yuri Belkin, Dan Green at 220, 242. Those were like the premier competitive classes. And then the higher weight classes were strong, but they weren't as deep. But now I feel like the 275 class is pretty damn deep, you know?
Yeah. So you're going into, say, your off-season mode now, with the next meet being what, October, late October?
Yeah.
With what you learned from this meet, because I think this is important, something that you already mentioned, there's what changes are you going to implement into your training based upon the squat and the bench?
Yeah. So
let me say, what are you thinking about changing? Because it's a little too soon to say, yeah, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So there is a few things I have in mind. So for viewers that don't know, you watched me squat last night. And you gave me some critiques, and I kind of knew this already. I couldn't pinpoint what it was, but Dave told me I have a very distinct anterior pelvic tilt. I think that's why my bracing, because at heavy weights, a lot of times it's like I lose my brace as I walk out one, because I'm wasting too much effort walking out, like you showed me now doing the side step. But also when I'm too anteriorly pitched forward, it's impossible to hold that position, even if I tried. So some of the stuff we experimented with last night with changing my torso position and initiating my hamstrings and getting the inner muscles like my abductors into squat. Because I really want to squat in flats, but it was always hard for me to hit depth or my ankles would shoot up. But some of the things you showed me last night, I'm definitely going to carry those things, and I have almost 4 months where I'm just going to try to ingrain those things. They're not major changes, but it still takes time. When you're implementing a new change, it takes time for the muscle memory and the neurological effect to really become like second nature. So that's kind of what I'm aiming for in squat. Because I think being in flats, I think it'll help with my stability, because I got the new TYR Squat University squat shoes. So they're wider. But in heels, it's always just felt just not as good as flats. But I did it because, I can guarantee to hit depth in heels. So that's why I've always done heels the last few years. And for bench press, like I told you earlier, a lot of times when I'm rack, anything under 400, it doesn't matter because I'm strong enough to overcome it. But for the last year or two, I was so worried about not keeping my arms out. I was almost bending my arms slightly too much. So I had on rack, and I have no stability because I'm not locked out stable with my chest up. It's impossible to do that looking back when I'm too soft in the elbows, because I have long arms, which obviously helps for deadlifting, but benching is kind of a bitch. So I've always tried to be like, well, how can I decrease my range of motion as much as possible? And now I'm realizing that's not the best way to go about it, you know? So like today I did, there'll be a video or two about it, but I really was accentuating setting up, just locking out and just making sure I was solidified here, not worrying about keeping my elbows bent. Because with some people, it's okay to have a tiny bend in your elbows, but I don't think I really need to do that. Like I was feeling my lats and everything else felt stable. And normally at heavy weights, my arms start shaking. And now I realize it's because my arms are probably a little bit too bent because I'm so worried about the range of motion.
Yeah.
But today I did a couple sets of reps at 315, 335, which isn't a ton of weight. But usually when I get fatigued, even with lightweight, my arms start shaking. And every rep, I just was able to keep that tension, and I felt stable every rep. So I'm hoping, and I'll do things like long pauses, 2-3 second long pauses. One of the referees of the meet, she told me even Duffalo bar too, get an extra stretch to once again be comfortable holding it during the stretch for longer. Probably a few other things, but those are some things off the top of my head I think I'll implement.
So when you start to implement those in, so let's say you get a 4-month period of time, you're not going to be concerned with trying to break fucking rep PRs and all this other stuff during this time.
No, during the off season, it's kind of like, I do keep in mind certain things, like for instance, sets of 6 to 8, I don't push that often. So maybe I might hit a 6, 7, 8 rep PR because I'm not really pushing that rep range very high very often. But yeah, I'm not going after specific numbers. Like I said, I'm just ingraining these new changes, building up my work capacity with some volume. And it's especially because I have to do a PFT for the Marine Corps in the next month. So I'm going to start running. So I kind of, in conjunction, whenever I'm getting ready for a physical training test in the military, I do more volume because once again, that's going to help me getting better aerobic capacity for running. Obviously, it's not the same thing. I'm not saying you could do sets of 10 and that's going to prepare you to run 3 miles. But I'm going to need to start running more now to prepare my body to do a 3-mile PFT run test. So yeah, for the next 6-8 weeks, it's going to be very moderate because, like I said, my knees and back are going to be feeling it a little bit because I have to start preparing for a PFT, which, if you don't know, a PFT in the Marine Corps, it's max pull-ups. I got to get at least 23 pull-ups to max out pull-ups. It used to be sit-ups. Now it's a plank. So I've never really done planks, but it shouldn't be too hard. I'll just train it a few times a week, and then obviously a 3-mile run. So this is just kind of a quick off note, but that's kind of one thing in the past, like having to juggle doing all the running, the PFT and CFT, the 2 types of fitness tests we do. At times I really had to lower the weight, which I thought was a bad thing at the time, but it kind of kept me in line from doing, from doing dumb stuff and going off program, because I never felt if I did a hike or ran several miles, I'm not going to have the energy or willpower to want to go off program and do some heavy ass lift I shouldn't be doing anyway. Yeah. So it's kind of kept me in my own lane because I'm not going to say I never feel great, but like in the past, I had so much workload through my job and all the training we would do. I would just always stay, what's the term? Kind of in my own lane. Very rarely have I ever said, I'm going to go off program because I feel great. That's never been a problem with me.
Well, there's a point which we'll get to later where I think you having to kind of back away from the powerlifting aspect for you to be able to pass, the Body Bears program actually ended up making a huge fucking difference in what your total was. Oh yeah. So I think you've kind of stumbled across just throughout your training timeline, a style of periodization over an annual period of time that works very well for you. Yeah. And putting it together correctly, like with this phase you're going into now, it's more technically oriented instead of what most people would do is they would come out of the meet, and I know you see this because you probably talk to people that do this. Mm-hmm. They come out of the meet and they're like, man, they're going to try to find like their week off the chest because the bench, right? So they say, I'm week off the chest, I need to start doing heavy dumbbells right away, right? Instead of trying to focusing on the technical aspect of why is this happening? It seems like you went first into what technical things need to be addressed. Mm-hmm. And then once those are figured out, then what physical capacities need to be developed to reinforce that technical aspect. Is that fair to say that's kind of how you think through it?
Yeah, exactly, Dave. Because, I've been doing this since...
a decade.
Yeah, basically a decade. My first few years, it was hit and miss because I started mid to late 2013. I joined the Marines 2015. So my first 3 to 4 years, training wasn't very consistent, but I'd say I was a powerlifter even back then. But yeah, it's like I've seen so many people come and go, and it's like if you're gifted enough, you can get to a decently high level just off a raw brute strength without much technique. But then it's more so to prevent injuries because, like I said, if you can fine-tune things and find your optimal leverages and technique, that's gonna in the long run make you less beat up. Like if you're deadlifting, and this is what happened to me, like I had a back injury because I didn't know how to brace properly, and I was hunching too much through my back and I didn't know how to keep my lats in my pocket. But that made me realize I need to change this. And then I remember I went online to try to figure out what the problem was, and I found those things out. And it was kind of a blessing in disguise, tweaking my back. It wasn't a horrible injury, but yeah, if I didn't change anything, probably would have kept hurting myself, wouldn't have gotten any stronger. Like I got to a decently high level, like I got to a 700 plus pound deadlift with pretty atrocious form, but like maybe I would have done 800 one day, but I wouldn't be where I'm at now if I didn't take a few steps back and figure out, okay, what can I do better? Because I'm not satisfied with where I'm at. So what do I need to like figure out in order to improve?
Yeah. So your first meet was in 2013, but I want to go back a little bit further than that, just from something that you said last night, which was really interesting to me. So you're born in California, you're raised in Oregon. So when was that change? When was that move?
So I was living in Stockton, California. I was born in Clovis, which is right outside Stockton. We moved when I was in the winter break when I was in 5th grade. So that was, that's so far back. I couldn't tell you. Yeah. But yeah, I've been in Oregon longer than I've been in Cali, in terms of my life. So yeah, it was drastic. Like Stockton was way different, just whole different kind of environment. Oregon was very I mean, I love Oregon because of the nature. There's a lot of great places to hike and walk and do trails. And growing up, my house was like a quarter, half mile from a park. And I would love to go to the park. Sometimes I'd ride my bike with my brother, or I'd go on runs there. Or there was this big steep hill, and I would run up the hill, do hill repeats. Because I remember I did football from 6th grade all the way till 1 year into college. And back then, you know, I heard a story. Walter Payton used to run up that steep, really steep hill, and that's why his legs are so big and strong. So that's like, as a kid, I would run up hills, not every day, but pretty routinely, especially in the summer when I didn't have much to do. I'd play basketball with my brother. There was a elementary school, also another walk, half a mile in the other direction. So we were always out doing something. Like we would play video games back then, but I was always just very hyper, almost ADHD like.
So it was football, track, and baseball, I believe.
Football, track, basketball, baseball.
So full year.
Yeah, basketball and baseball were more early on. I did those, once again, very young. I stopped basketball my freshman year of high school. I did baseball up to like 5th grade, and I did track from 6th grade to 12th grade. I did football from 5th grade to when I was 18, a freshman in college.
That's just really that. I don't know why this reminded me of that. Somebody said last night that fucking made me actually laugh out loud was when you're telling those kids that, you know, I don't have this fucked up background like most people. Like, you know, I grew up okay. You know, my parents were good.
I don't have this inner rage. You know, this fucked up like. Cause like I joked to you, I was like, white middle class suburban neighborhood. Like I did sports, you know.
It's all good.
I didn't, like I said, I never did drugs or anything like that. So I wasn't in trouble with the law. Like really couldn't, I don't have anything I could look back on and be like, oh, that fucking sucked. You
can't tap into any of that, right?
Yeah.
Where the, you said last night that your dad didn't let you lift any weights until you were 14, but you were doing body weight squats and lunges and stuff like that. So what did that look? First off, I assume you're doing those just to be better at football.
Yeah.
And condition.
And it's not that he didn't let me lift weights, but we got a little weight set in my garage once I was around 13. But up until that point, I just did body weight stuff. So I would do a lot of body weight squats, lunges. I did sit-ups. I would just get this this pull-up attachment that you could hold your feet under, put it against the door or against a crack in the wall. And I would do sit-ups on the ground. I would do push-ups. Back then I was doing push-ups.
Yeah.
It was all shoulders. You know, chest was one of the hardest things for me. It was like one of the last body parts for me to figure out how to cue right. Because all throughout my youth, I did push-ups literally the wrong freaking way. That's why my shoulders were so developed, I think.
Yeah, so you built your shoulders from the push-up and your neck from the sit-ups.
Yeah. It's funny how that worked out.
So with the body weight squats, how many are you doing a day? Just hundreds or like... Because sometimes I'll hear that and it ends up being, I just did a couple sets of 10. For some reason, I'm not thinking that's the case with you.
I mean, it was kind of, like I said, I was weird. I had a Game Boy as a kid, so I would play whatever games I had on that. But if I was just bored, I just knock out 40 to 50. And I probably do that 5, 6, 7 times during the day. Same with sit-ups. It was just like sometimes I would have the intent to do a whole workout. But if I was just chilling and I was just bored of playing my Game Boy or I just had nothing to do or I didn't want to watch TV, I would just crank out some body weight squats or do push-ups or sit-ups. It just became like, it's almost like it became a habit. So like, I didn't know why I did it. I was just like I said, I was a hyper kid. I always had to be moving. So I was like, if I'm not doing anything, why not just pump out some squats or push-ups or sit-ups?
Well, the reason I'm pushing into some of these things is I'm sure you're asked questions now about your deadlift and how do you get the mobility? How do you get the structure? A lot of these things you developed then. Right? Because a lot of physical attributes, even mental attributes, are going to be developed at a way younger age.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Now, you perfect it years later, right? But if they don't have that mobility, work capacity, endurance, physical endurance, all those things from all those different sports, then they're a little bit behind.
Yeah, I agree, because I think powerlifting, I don't think it's like wrestling or Olympic weightlifting where you have to specialize at a very, very young age to be technical enough. Like me doing 4 different sports for all those years, like I felt like each sport I developed slightly different strengths and attributes, especially with track and field. Because in track, you know, I was a sprinter. I never did throws, even though people always said, oh, you're big, you need to do throws. But like all the hurdle drills, all the mobility stuff we would do, like my hips, my abductors, my groin, it definitely strengthened those muscles, because to be a good sprinter, you got to be able to, like, those muscles have to be strong enough, or else you're going to pull them. Because when I started I did conventional my first few years, and then I hurt my back. And when I rehabbed and came back, someone told me, oh, try sumo because it's slightly less stress on your back or whatever. Yeah. And the moment I tried sumo, I tried close stance, but it just felt weird. And I went wider. Maybe it's my femur, my body type, along with, like I just told you, but it felt more natural to go wider. And I never had to force it. That's why I try to tell people is you don't want to do mobility all day to try to force yourself into a position your body's just not meant to be in. Like, depending on your limb lengths, you may not need to go as wide. It doesn't mean that's not ideal for you. That's the hard thing to take away is when I was coming up, I would watch Dan Green, some of the Russians, back in the day, like 2010-ish, 2010, 2015, or even earlier, I can't even name some of them, but there was 2 or 3 Russians who were very technical, very good deadlifters who broke some world records. Yeah, and Yuri Belkin too. Like, I would try to imitate all their techniques, and I would take away little things, but I realized very quickly I can't just copy someone. Like, you have to figure out what actually works for you. But through it all, I made a lot of...
You're fine. You're good.
Yeah. Like I said, I don't regret that because I made a lot of mistakes. Like, I tried all the different stance widths. I tried different everything. But in the end, I realized what I know now works because I've tried everything. So, like, there's nothing I haven't tried. So there's no guesswork like, oh, what if I tried this? No, I tried that. I did this. I did that. Like... you don't know till you try, as they say. So,
well, the other attribute I think you developed during those younger years of multi-sport athlete development, whatever you want to call it, is coachability. So just a couple of things last night that I pointed out to you, I had to say once, and then you got it, you knew what it was and did it, right? You see that I don't want to say this to make it sound bad, but I mean, how many times you've tried to help some lifters out just to do some simple shit? And then after 100 fucking times, you're looking for somebody else. Can somebody else explain this?
Be like a messenger.
Yeah. And I've noticed that when I've had to work with pro football players or whatever. I mean, higher level pro athletes of that caliber, you tell them to do one thing physically and it's done. It's like the fuck, that's a different level of craziness as far as their coachability. But I think that all goes back to when you're younger, being coached by all these different people, because if you don't do it right, they're on your shit for it.
Yeah.
And then when you finally figure it out and it feels right, then it locks in, so as we move forward, just you locking in these lifts, power lifts, you've done it with your deadlift. It didn't come easy. I think people are misinformed there. It didn't come easy for you to figure out how to lock it in. And now you're in the process of trying to lock in those other lifts too. Yeah. But the process, which is what we're going to peel back as we keep going through here. And so the college football, what I want to say, why did you decide? Obviously you went to play football, right? So when you went to college for that year, was football the driving force or was the degree the driving force?
It was football.
Of course.
I didn't know what I wanted to do whatsoever. And obviously high school to college is a complete different shift in whatever sport you're doing. Because in high school, I had some talent, but I just worked harder than everyone. And I like I told you last night, back then I was doing visualization and that helped me a ton. Just imagining, that helped me just be prepared for the big moments in any sport I did. But when I got to college, it became more I don't want to say a job, but you do hours of film, you do a ton of practice along with lifting weights and then the games. But it was a blessing in disguise because it made me realize by spring ball the next year that I enjoyed training. I enjoyed the training and the training for football, the sprints and the lifting, more than being a football player. But in high school, I told myself I enjoy working out and training for football because I want to be a better football player. But then, like I said, I came to a realization it was the exact opposite. Even just doing a year of football, and it was tough because that summer it was just on my mind for several weeks. And then I told my parents, and I ended up calling the coach. And it's hard because that was, for 7-8 years, that's what I was known as. But I was like, I don't want to do this anymore, you know? So, but I knew deep down, it's like, I just don't want to do this anymore because I just enjoy the working out and pushing my body, but not in terms of the football aspect. And then shortly after, a few months, I'm just lifting, just bro lifting, just kind of doing whatever. And then there was a competition. It's called Downing's Gym in Corvallis, Oregon. So it was the summer of, I believe, 2013. Yeah. So I just did a meet. Didn't really train for it at all, but they're like, hey, do a meet. There's a meet at your home gym. Just do it. And I can't remember the exact numbers. I squatted 5 something in knee wraps. I benched 275 and I deadlifted 600. And it was kind of cool because I got the competitive spark I did from football.
19 total.
Oh, crazy.
At 220.
Yeah, I was 220 back then. Yeah, and then
juniors.
Yeah, I was 20. I think I was 20. 19.
It's 20. 19. It's 19.
Yeah. And then so after that, I was like, okay, cool. I get to lift, which I enjoy doing, but then there's a competitive aspect of pushing myself, accountability solely on me. Obviously, you have a coach and you could have training partners, but like I said, team sports were great, but you could have a stellar day and you could still lose, which would piss me off, you know?
Okay.
Like in all those, like I said, football, basketball, or even baseball, if I had a great game, but we still shit the bed and lost, I was like, I couldn't have done anything more. Like, what am I supposed to take home from this experience when I did everything I needed to do, you know?
Well, how did that make you feel when you were doing that, but other teammates weren't, and then you would lose?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm very self-driven. I've always been, even before the Marines, I was kind of regimented in a way. And I always made sure I did what I had to do to get better. And you could tell who isn't doing that. And yeah, it would just kind of piss me off because I'm like, well, we're probably not, who knows what the result's going to be, but I know I'm going to give it my all, but I can't say that for the rest of the people, you know? So when I got into powerlifting, you know, at first I didn't know where it would take me, but I was like, for the time being, this just gives me a goal to, like, when I'm in the gym training, to push towards bettering myself in some way. And for that, you know, I enjoy it just for the fun of it.
When you see the return, because I had the same experience because I did wrestle. So I had some of that from wrestling, like the harder I worked, the greater return I saw for myself. But then I also played football and that pissed me off. It really did. Because, you know, I'm busting my ass. I'm also powerlifting at the time. Yeah. And not everybody else is. Yeah. And then we're losing, but yet they'd all bitch and complain in the locker room afterwards. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you don't have the right to bitch and complain because you didn't fucking do anything to make us better. But then I suck now too. Because did you have any of that mental shit going on? Or
yeah, like I said, there'd be times where, you know, we lose or whatever sport, and I'm thinking, well, I'm not gonna look down on myself because I know I did it. Yeah, I did everything I could. So it's not like I can't babysit other people and motivate them. If you don't have that intrinsic motivation, then I don't know why you're here. That was always my mindset, you know?
But then when I did my first powerlifting meet, it was like, okay, cool. Like it's all on me. Yeah. Like if I fuck up, I fuck up. You know, if I do good, I do good. And sometimes the training will go good, but I don't do good. That's okay. Yeah. Because it wasn't because, you know, Tom, Dick, and Harry just suck, you know, and weren't willing to do what they were supposed to do to be able to get better. Now, I want to go down a side road here where you talked about the visualization part. And we talked a little bit last night, and I said, I'm going to wait till tomorrow to get into this. What introduced you to that? Because this was in high school with football. When did you start? And was it you just realized that you were daydreaming and thinking about it all the time? Or was there something that made you look into that rabbit hole of how can I work on the mental aspect?
So I think it was my sophomore, junior. I don't remember what year, but I would kind of do it intuitively. But then I think me and my mom, we went to a yard sale or we went somewhere and I found this book. And it was a sports psychology book. Yeah. And it gave examples, like it was some psychologist from the 80s or 90s who worked with high-level athletes. And he would go over things he would do with these athletes to try to instill confidence and improve their performance. Things like mission statements, writing down, like, for instance, for deadlift, like I have a bunch of like quotes that I always think about to kind of keep my mind right. Like I have limitless grip. There's no weight I can't hold on to. I have tree trunks for legs. I can break anything off the floor. Like things that instill confidence when you say them. So if you ever get nervous or doubt yourself, I just start thinking about those phrases in my head, and it just goes away. So that was one of the things. And then obviously visualizing itself, like, you know, the moment. So like, for instance, powerlifting, I'll visualize squat, bench, or deadlifting. I'll think about the sights, the sounds, the reactions of people, this, like the smelling of the ammonia, the chalk, the baby powder, everything that makes it that more vividly and real. Because then it mentally rehearses yourself to where if you do that if you get good at that, then you go to a competition and it's like you already believe you kind of already did it. And it's like, I'm doing what I already know I just did in my head. It's just like, it's like a rehearsal. It's like, okay, this, in my mind, this already happened. Now I'm just going to go out and do what I already have imagined happening. I think especially at the highest level, once you get, it benefits anybody, but think about it, the top 1% of athletes in any sport, to an extent, they're all physically gifted. They all have something, they're outliers in some way. But then it becomes mental, in my opinion, because your ability to perform, your ability to go to high level competitions and be consistent and execute when it matters, when the pressure's on you, that is all mental. It doesn't physically, that has nothing to do with physically. Your ability to execute and like be able to be in the right mindset, you know, everyone's different. For instance, like some people get really psyched up.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in the middle where I'm mentally stimulated, but I'm focused. I'm not too hyper focused, but you don't want to be too calm to where, oh, this is just, I'm just here, whatever. So you kind of figure out throughout time what your optimal level is for focus. So yeah, that's something that, you know, you hear it a million times, like, oh, anything you can imagine, like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Obviously it gets overdone, but I think it's something that a lot of people can, and like I said, there's tons of books, so you could just go online. There's probably a fuck ton of shit on YouTube. It's just like, I just still do the stuff I remember. It's probably still at my mom's house somewhere. Like that old book, it was just a paperback. Like I said, I can't remember the psychologist who did it, but like, there's just a bunch of real world examples of the stuff he did with all these athletes and all these different sports, like Olympians, basketball players, etc. And I just kind of read that a few times, and I took examples from that book and applied them in real life to, at the time, football. And then once I started doing powerlifting, I did kind of the same thing.
I think the end of all that mental training, the end objective of all that is confidence, right? If some people need to go, you know, be berserk for that confidence, they need to. If some don't, you got to figure out where that is, where a couple of these I want to dig a little deeper in. Because I look at any sticking point or any sport or really anything, even business, is mental, physical, and technical. Those are the three main components.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, in powerlifting, everybody wants to go to the physical for the answer. Like, oh, my deadlift sucks. What exercise do I need to do to make it better? And you're like, dude, your technique sucks.
Yeah.
You know, so usually it's those other two. But in the mental realm, the biggest fear that gets overlooked the most is stress management. You know, like control what you can control and don't worry about what you can't. Like people get all fucked up about things, drama and stuff they have no control over. So then they can't focus on their affirmations or even do the visualization because they're still mad about, you know, their buddy 5 years ago that still owes them $5 for whatever it's going to be. You know, they just can't let that shit go. You know, and I think as we go through here in the military, it's been taught to you a little bit better. You fuck up, you got it, you let it go. That allows you to focus more. The affirmations are huge. You know, that's huge. And now with the affirmations, and it's a process just like strength, it gets better over time. When you first started doing those, were you like one of these guys that was writing them on the mirror or posting notes up in your room, or was it just something that you just had a few things that you were saying repetitively all the time?
It's more so just in my head. Like I remember the only thing I ever wrote down, and I told you this last night, was when I first started powerlifting, my lifetime goal was to squat 800, bench 500, and deadlift 800. Because at the time, a 2K total was top level elite, regardless of weight class, in 2013. So that's the only thing I ever remember writing down. It was like 6-8 months after I started powerlifting, and I was like, well, I'm at a 600 deadlift, so an 800 would be absolutely insane one day. And I gave myself 10 years. That's been, because back then it was understood that you probably weren't going to get good to your early your early 30s, right? Because there's a lot of people who are flash in the pan who blow up early on, but it seemed like back then, all the people I studied, they started getting good late 20s, early 30s. It wasn't like they were 20, 21 just, and I'm not saying that's bad. Like, it's great to have success early on, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Just because you lift a certain weight at 18, 19, 20, like, people just assume, oh, well, he's going to add 200-300 pounds because he's 20 and, you know, in 10 years. But I've seen plenty of dudes with crazy potential, but then they get injured or they just don't ever live up to the hype or what people imagine they'd be. Because like I said, some people just peak early. I don't know if it's genetics or whatnot, but like, not everybody who's strong for their age pans out. And that's the thing that pissed me off is on social media nowadays, that's all they want to like post and reshare and hype up is people, oh, 18-year-old deadlift 700, 16-year-old squat 600. And they're just going to assume he, like, obviously that's great. And that's a great start, but it doesn't, especially in my case, like, I wasn't, my first year or two, you wouldn't have ever thought I would be where I'm at now. So like, when I see that, I'm like, that's cool and I'm great for them. But like, to just automatically assume in 4 to 5 years, they're going to be the cream of the crop. That's like, you know, and that's what I like about powerlifting. It's for a lot of people, it could be a sport of longevity. Like, you don't have a quick timeline to get good. Like, it's not like from 20 to 23, you got to go all gas, no brakes, or else you'll never be good. You know, there's plenty of people who progressed and are still good in their late to mid 30s. Obviously, mid 30s is probably when it cuts off. I'm not gonna lie. You know, once you've been lifting close to 2 decades, that's kind of when.
Well, she starts to get beat up. It becomes a little bit different thing. But with those lifetime goals, though, and I have them wrote down. I don't have them here. You know them better than I do because I think it was 800, 500, and 800. Right. So you've taken 2 out, the total and the deadlift, right? Yeah. There's still 2 others you're working toward. Yeah. Right. So people can say, you know, you see what I'm saying? It was a realistic proposition that you put out there, and then you've had to make, you know, what do I want to say? Adjustments is a way better word. You had to make adjustments, obviously, to the deadlift. It's like, oh, okay, look, I can't keep this. That'd be stupid. Yeah. I can't keep it here. I got to drive that a little bit more. But those other 2 are still there, and you are at that 10-year point. Right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, the thing that matters the most, the total, you're way over that. The deadlift, you're way over that. But I can sit here and say, dude, like, what's up with the bench, man? You're still not there. Yeah. And that's where you wanted to be 10 years ago. Yeah. And your squat. And I know that plays in your head a little bit too, because those were those main goals and that's what you're striving towards. The question that I would have with that is when you finally squat 800, which will be fairly soon, I believe. Yeah. Are you going to feel, what's that one going to feel like compared to the other ones?
It's going to be, like I said, it's going to give me a little nostalgia because I still remember 2013 being that hungry. Like, I was like, dude, I want to hit some impressive numbers. And I know it's going to take time, but I'm willing to put in the work and I'm not worried about rushing the process, you know? And, I'm confident my next meet is going to happen. Yeah. And when it does, like I said, bench in the next year and a half, I really think the 500 can be close. It can be close to that. But the thing is, once you reach those monumental lifetime, whatever goals, you enjoy it. I'll give you an example. So like, I remember in 2020, when I broke my first 2, I did 933 and 948 to break the existing 931 deadlift to 275. I was expecting it to be life-changing. I thought like the moment I did it, my life would change forever. And then I remember like 2 days after the meet, I was already like, so what's my next goal? Like I couldn't even take a week off from just plotting my next move, you know? And that's when, and like I said, I still enjoy pushing the lifts higher, but that's when I realized, you know, you have goals, but then like you said, you adjust as soon as you get them, you enjoy it for a little bit, but then you adjust because there was no way I was going to be satisfied. Like for months, just like, I broke an all-time record. I don't, you know.
I've always had this weird association with just the word goals. And I think it comes from a book I read a long time ago from Don Shula and Ken Blanchard called Everybody's a Coach, where what Don Shula was basically saying is he didn't like the word goals because they can be, you know, short-sighted. Like said, what if, you know, it is 800, but you can yet pull 10, you can pull 1,000. Yeah. Then you're selling yourself short, you know, to where ever since reading that, I'm like, well, how many things have I had that I put out there that are goals that I actually could have been better at, but wasn't because of that. So I switched it to objectives. You know,
Oh,
it's all fucking semantics,
Yeah.
right? But in my brain, it's like, okay, if this is the objective, then that, you know, then it's a different process because then it's like a mission, right? So if this
Yeah.
is the mission, what happens when the mission's accomplished? Well, you go to the next mission. The
Yeah.
problem with the goals, like what happens when the goal's accomplished, and which is this big one, in a lot of minds, it's like, well, I guess I'm done, right?
Yeah,
It's
that's
like,
because that's what I'm not saying I was going to be done after that, but like I said, when you think of it as a goal, I was like, oh, I reached the mountaintop.
yeah.
But then shortly after, I was like, no, I didn't. I mean, I still got more in me. So then it's like, I like what you just said. That's a better way to put it in that sense. It's like objectives. It's like, okay, you take one, then you go for another, then you keep on readjusting your aim.
Yeah.
But with goals, it's kind of just like, it seems like, okay, once you reach the goal, you're done. When that's never going to be how it is, you know?
And I think that's where, at least when I was younger, that's kind of how goals are programmed, at least how they were explained to me. Like you do this, like the goal is to get married, have kids, whatever it is. Like, okay, then what do you do after that? You know, it's like, I guess that's it. You know, that's
the end of life.
Yeah, so it just became this weird thing where it didn't connect well, where the objectives did, where here with the goal of playing college football, that came to a halt, you know, it came to a stop. And then how exactly did the Marine Corps come into this?
So after I dropped out of college, I started working at Home Depot, you know, lumber department. Oh, I was a loader, so I'd load a ton of bags of concrete. Like I would just, sometimes it'd be 30, 40, 50 bags of, what were they, 20, 40 pounds? I don't remember.
This onto pallets or onto trucks? Or,
people would buy a fuck ton of concrete, and then I would be the guy or anyone who needed to load.
Yeah.
I was like, whatever, fertilizer, it didn't matter what, or loading lumber.
Mm-hmm.
And I did that for about a year and some change, I think. And then I reached to a point where my mom was telling me, okay, Daniel, you know, you need to figure out what you want to do with your life. You need to tell me some kind of plan, because I'm not just going to let you meander around and just mooch off me, you know? And so, and at the time I was like, oh, I could do plumber, electrician, get into a trade. But then there was a guy at my work, his name was Marcus. He was a college student, and he was going to go the officer route, you know, do the program to get in the Marine Corps as an officer from college. So then I started thinking about it a little bit. I was like, oh, I could be a plumber, electrician in the Marines. And then I went back to my mom and said that, and she wasn't happy to hear that. And, you know, for a while there was tension, but then eventually, because I went to boot camp November 15, 2015. So I always remember that date, because it's literally like pretty easy to remember.
Yeah, 15. Yeah.
Literally like the stars align for me to like leave on that day. It's like an equinox or something. But yeah, once I got done with boot camp, she was obviously once you go to either Paris or I went to MCRD San Diego, and you see the ceremony and you see your kid with the Marine Corps uniform on. Obviously, she was sold after that, so she's been happy with that ever since.
What was your plan going in?
It was kind of just, you know, I was only planning to do one enlistment. It was just kind of to figure things out. I just wanted to get away. You know, like I said, predominantly, obviously I was born in Cali, but at that point I'd been in Oregon a good while. And, you know, like I said, I had an idea. I maybe wanted to do a trade, but I was like, what can I don't really have a lot to lose right now. That sounds fucked. It's not like I had nothing going for me, but like, I was like, it's 4 years, and what do I really have to lose? I'm guaranteed a paycheck and benefits. I can kind of just fuck around for a few years. Sorry.
That's what you're good.
Yeah. And I like, you know, figure life out, because that's the cool thing about the military in a way. And, you know, I don't regret it. I think it worked out. Especially I was at Camp Pendleton from 2016 to 2020. And I got to go to a lot of cool gyms when I was in Southern California. And that kind of sparked, because like at that point I was powerlifting, but it was hit and miss. Like I'd go on field ops where I couldn't train for weeks or whatever. Or I did go on a deployment mid to late 2018. But yeah, you know, all the experiences, like I went to, some of them I can't name off the top of my head, but I met a lot of strong people, and that continued to motivate me. Like you got to be surrounded, who you surround yourself with is a huge deal. So having, being exposed to all that, you know, I was getting stronger, but it was cool to see certain people and train with them, because it only motivated my spark to want to get better, because I was around dudes who were just literally like repping my warm-up weights, you know? So I was like, damn, you know, I need to, like, this dude's humbling me right now, you know? I got to be dialed in.
So how popular was powerlifting where you were when you were moving around at that time?
In SoCal is pretty big. Even like California is one of those states, one of the first states, like there was meets several times a month. Like in Oregon, it was very sparse. Like you maybe have a meet a month, or I don't know, not even a meet a month sometimes. Oregon, it's bigger now, but Cali's still way probably 5-6 times as many meets a year. So the access is way easier. So that's why, once again, I said it was a blessing to go to a state where there's a ton of competitions.
What about training though?
Like I said, my training wasn't my first 3.5 years. I would run, you know, a mile or two, sometimes 3 a day. So I was running 8 to 10 miles a week. I was getting stronger. a little bit, but obviously in those, you can't do that much cardio, work 12, 14-hour days and expect to get stronger. Like maybe when you're first starting lifting, you can, because you're just so new to it. But right around, because 2018 was the first meet where I started to like put up a decent total. Like I did 1850, or it was 2019. Because I remember I came back from deployment October 2018 from Australia. I went to Darwin, Australia, North Australia. It's one of the most northern cities. And I got to do some good training out there, luckily. I pulled 800 for the first time. It was on a stiff bar with pound plates. So I was like, okay, I'm finally going to pull 800 in a meet. And that meet, it was March 2019. I totaled 18, I'd say low to mid 18s. I couldn't tell you exact numbers. I squatted like 680-ish, benched like 360, 370, and deadlifted 848. I was like, okay, I'm getting somewhere. This is promising.
So that was the first 800 you did?
Yeah, it was the first time I ever broke over 800 in a meet.
So what did that feel like for you, since that was one of your lifetime goals?
At that point, I was like, I made it. No, I was like, man, where do I go now? No, but it was kind of, like I said, it was kind of the same as what I just told you. Like I was satisfied for a short while. Yeah. I was like, wow, I guess we're on the way to 900 now. Yeah. And then a few weeks later, there was some deadlifting. It was at a gym called Blueprint Strength. Somewhere in Southern California. I don't remember what city. But I just went there, not even expecting to lift anything. And then I started warming up. And of course, you get to these events, you know, all of a sudden like, oh, I'm going to go kind of heavy, you know? So I work up and I did 880. And then I did like 905 or 910. I don't remember. It was borderline. I'm not going to lie. Like lockout was iffy. But I got a clean 880. I was like, wow, holy shit. I'm already pretty close to 900. So then the next year, I was about to re-enlist. I thought I was going to go on embassy duty, which for those of you who don't know, Marines guard embassies all around the world. There's upwards of, I think, 200 embassies where our military guards the compounds, American embassies. So I was like, okay, this is my last meet maybe for a few years. I don't know, with all the traveling to countries, I'm on a lift or not. So I did a meet in, it was March 2020, broke my first 2K total. I totaled 2,100. It was like 2,105. Squatted 742, benched. What did I bench? 429, 410 or 429. And then I deadlifted 948. Like, and the crazy thing about that prep, this is when I really realized the importance of the peak, of how peaking works, is my heaviest pull in training was 860. I failed 880 in training. And of course, you know, I was like, oh my God, I'll be lucky to get 900. I failed 880. And then on the day of the meet, I opened with 860. Went 904, just smoked it. Then did 933 on my third to chip the record. And then that part I was like, wow, I felt pretty good. And then they're like, you want to do a fourth? I was like, okay. Waited like 3 minutes, and then did 948. So yeah, I did 948. My heaviest deadlift in training made was 860. And obviously it's different for everyone, but kind of like you said with Chad, Wesley Smith, it's like, with me, it's normally a 9 to 10% variation. Like if when I pulled 1074, I did 1,003 in training. It was smooth. I had maybe a rep in the tank. So let's say it's RPE 8.5 or something. So that told me I was good for mid, potentially high thousands, because like I said, the 9 to 10%, 9 to 10, and that was about, I think it was 2.5 weeks out when I did that. So normally my heaviest pull is between 2.5, 3 weeks out. And, but I learned that through, like I said, several meets where I would hit something in training, and then on meet day, I'd do like 40, 50 pounds more. And I was like, wow, like, I guess, you know, this is how this works for me. But everyone's different. I'm not saying everybody, that's going to be like that for everybody. It depends on, obviously, the higher it is, the more that takes into account. Like if I try to do 1,030, 1,040 in training, but it's an absolute grinder and I destroy my CNS, like it's just, that's not going to help me any. And when I'm peaking with squat, you're peaking all 3 lifts in conjunction with each other. So if I'm peaking, it's impossible to peak all lifts at the same time. That's why most people, their last deadlift is maybe 3 weeks out.
Mm-hmm.
Their last bench is like 10 days out. Their last squat is like 2-ish weeks out or something. Like trying to do all those in the same week, it's probably not going to be a good end result, you know? So
what, from 2019 to, let's say, because that was a 2,100 pound total.
mm-hmm.
While you were training for, say, that year of training coming up into that meet compared to years prior, did you, I don't want to say, did you train more conservatively during that time period than you had in the past, knowing that there could be that bigger difference between a training max and competitive max? Or were there any other changes broadly that happened to the way that you were doing your programming?
So in 2020, you're talking about 2020?
Yeah, well, yeah, the difference between 2020 to 2021.
So at least for the prep, because I was checking out of my unit.
Actually, no, going back from 2019 to 2020.
2019, I think I was on deployment. And like I said, that was the most consistent my training had been for the last 2 years. For 6 months, I was consistently training 3-4 days a week. And I was able to control a lot of variables. That's why a lot of people love deployments. Because, you know, even in Iraq or Afghanistan, they normally have pretty good gyms because that's the only thing they can really have out there. So it was just my ability to control all the variables. Because like I said, my first 3, from 2015 to 2018, my first 3 years, I trained for a week. Then it's like, oh, you're going to the field for 10 days.
Yeah.
I'm like, shit, I'm just going to eat straight MREs, you know, not feel good. I would do bodyweight stuff, but that's not the same as lifting weights. So I'd be very inconsistent with how, like, it's hard to judge, okay, you had a good month of training, then you got to leave for 2 weeks, then you come back and you kind of just are starting over.
Sure.
So I was just kind of spinning my wheel for a few years. So then I just focused on technique because I was like, well, I can't train as heavy as I want because who knows when I'm going to go to a field op or maybe go on a deployment. But what I can do is just play around with setups and techniques to figure out, okay, maybe this will be beneficial for me in my setup, or oh, maybe this grip width will be better. I don't know, but I mean, I can't go as heavy. I can't push the envelope right now, so I might as well just play around with certain things. And that's what I did back then. And then come 2019, like I said, I came off the deployment, had a great 6 months of consistent training, and I got back, competed 4 months later. So that carried me basically having a very long off season where I actually got to train regularly and consistently. And I never really bring that up because I don't make excuses for being in the Marine Corps, you know? It's not like if something, there's been plenty of times in the past where I'm like, damn, like this definitely affected me. But I didn't go online and be like, oh, well, you know, I ran 3 miles and then tried to squat 700. This totally fucked me over. Cause I willingly did this. So it's not like someone put a gun to my head and said, you need to serve. Like I chose to do this. So I'm like, well, this isn't the brightest thing to do, trying to be a Marine and a high-level powerlifter, but I'll make it work the best I can. Because like I said, to me, complaining and whining just doesn't get you anywhere. So I was always just trying to control the variables I could to an extent.
Well, I think that's a huge takeaway, though, because it's not so much the Marines, right? So if you're in a training environment where you know the consistency is going to be a little bit of whack, you know, it's going to be whack and it's not really in your control, you can change the focus like you said you did. Let's just focus on all the technical aspects, which I can lock that in. You have control over that. You may not have control over how the gym is or what this other stuff is. And then when that consistency comes, everything's better, right? So you can take anybody that's working in any job, right? If they have a certain period where they're just getting bombarded, or just life's fucking like going through a divorce, stress is super fucking high, they can still go in and work on the technical aspects, you know, and on the back end of that it's a big fucking difference. Yeah. You know, because now you come back and the technical acuity is way better than what it was before. So then when you start putting the gap, I can make an argument that this was a really good thing.
I think so too. It's like in the moment I thought it was hindering me. Yeah. But like I said, I've been doing this almost 10 years. The only injury I've ever had is I've like pulled my quad and for a few days I was kind of tender, but I've never had a major injury because like I said, all these times it prevented me from just pushing too heavy, too long, or like going off program, doing YOLO this, YOLO that. Like I had to always stay in my own lane because of like the physical, like my job and obviously the training that goes with it. And like I said, it just caused me to think about all the little things that matter that most people overlook. And then when I finally got the green light to bring it all together, I was like, cool, I just figured all this out. Now it's time to put it into practice.
Well, it happened again later in your career too, which solidifies that it was the right thing. But going back to that time period there's two other choices that you could have made. One would be every time I go in the gym, I'm going to full throttle and just make this work. You know how that ends, right? For most people. Or the other option would be, fuck it, I'm just going to drink beer and not train at all. Where, what that option ends up being though too. So it's controlling those I think that's a huge fucking component working through. That's why I like working through people's timelines.
Just to find all these
be able to find these little things, man, because sometimes what seems like it's detrimental at the time ends up being a positive attribute that you'll use moving forward just to become better. The second time where I think that happened is when you went into the body bearers. That's a weird thing.
Yeah.
The reason it's weird for me is because in powerlifting, you got the powerlifting bears. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It's like the body bears, like it's, but anyhow, when you went there, and we'll talk about that a little bit, that will also put a pause on how hard your training was for 7 months or so.
Yeah. So I'll go over it.
So first, explain what it is for the people that don't know.
Yeah. So for those that don't know, the Marine Corps, we have the world famous body bear funeral detail team. So we go to Arlington National Cemetery daily and do casket and cremation funerals for Marines and their family members. So the tempo varies, but we'll have a certain amount of funerals per day. Sometimes we travel out of state to, if vice presidents, presidents, former congressmen or women die. Occasionally we do travel outside of Arlington and DC. Like I told you before, in 2004, 5, 6, 6 years ago, we went to George Bush Sr. in Texas. I was a part of Senator Harry Reid's funeral. That was about 1.5 years ago. So yeah, we have opportunities where we're in the spotlight a little bit, and that's pretty cool to be able to travel and experience those things. But you want me to say this? Well, I'll say the strength test after, because the strength test after, and So it was July 2020. That's when I officially transferred over to ceremonial drill school, which is a school for the world famous body bears, to become a body bear. And it took me 9.5 months. So for 9.5 months, I didn't deadlift. I think I might have deadlifted once just to make sure I remembered how to do it, because the training. So we start every day off with drill, most of the time around 5:36-ish. We do our warm up, which is 3 sets of 20 pull-ups with 3 sets of 20 bicep curls with a 35 on each side, 115. And in between each evolution of set, we jog. We call it the firewall. It's like a spot halfway between the parking garage. We jog back. We jog to the firewall and come back. So it's literally like almost a mini CrossFit workout. It's not, we call it the warm-up, but it's anything but a warm-up. Like whenever I would do it, I'd be drenched. Like I used to sweat so much in CDS, like you would see my footprints on the ground in the parking garage because I'd sweat through my damn soles of my shoes, because I would be drenched even after the warm-up, which is hilarious because sometimes I would practice drill. And I remember one time they told me, you're marching kind of crooked. You're not marching straight. And they pointed at the ground and you could see my wet footprints all crooked as fuck. And and I was like, wow, actually, I know what you mean, because I can see my footprints. But yeah, I mean, during that training, we do a lot of stuff with plates. So we'll do shoulder press with plates. We'll do plate holds. We carry one of the harder things is we'll get a set of 45s to work on our grip, and we'll farmers carry them to one end of the parking garage to the other. It's probably excess 200-300 yards. And the best I ever did was I only dropped it 3 or 4 times the whole time for, like I said, I'm guessing it's between 200 and 300. We've never officially measured it, but and then we would do sprints. We obviously practice carrying caskets along with all the different types of funerals. And throughout the school, we're testing your knowledge. And then eventually you get shot to go into Arlington, and then you got to prove yourself, and then you kind of work yourself up the ladder until we realize you're competent enough where we're like, okay, this guy, it's kind of like a vote among the team. Like everyone on the team, once they get to that point, it's like a whole team vote. Like, do you feel so-and-so has shown every proficiency in all the funerals we've seen and needed to? And if it's enough yeses, then he graduates, and then that person becomes an honorary member of the world famous Body Bears. And it's just cool because it's kind of like we're all very like-minded. To make it through the school, you kind of have to have certain characteristics like discipline, a lot of intrinsic motivation, because during the school, there's a lot of, I won't say too much because we've always been we like to be low key and not be in the spotlight. That's always been a thing with us. But the biggest thing I learned from the school is like, no one's you're not getting patted on the back. No one's saying, hey, good job. You had a great funeral. You get pointed out what you need to work on. It's just like in powerlifting or anything else. Like, don't tell me what I'm already good at.
Yeah.
Tell me what I need to address. And that's how the school is. Like, you're never going to be told really that you're doing well, but you have to find it within yourself to keep pushing. And then eventually you will see the daylight at the end of the tunnel. But if you're expecting handouts and piggybacks and like, you're doing great, Jimmy. Like, we're so proud of you. No, you're not going to get any of that in the school. And that's what makes it so grueling. It's physically grueling, but even more so mentally grueling, because day in and day out, you're going to drill sometimes 2 times a day, like at least once every day, but sometimes 2 times a day if we want to get more work in. Plus you're doing funerals. And if you do that for months on end, it gets pretty grueling. I'm not going to I came there already 260 plus. I could smoke the strength test, but the mental was even tougher for me. So like, it's not just, people think we're just bodybuilders who are Marines. It's not just about lifting weights, but we have to lift weights in order to condition our bodies to be able to handle the heavy loads of caskets. Because most normal caskets are 200 to 300. The heaviest ones there's been a few heavy ones, probably upwards of 800 pounds. And there's 6 people on the team. So you got to be strong enough to carry your own weight, So we have these physical standards in place because we need to make sure we can execute the mission. Like, we're not going to drop the damn casket. That's not an option,
Yeah.
So that's why the school is so hard, because the product we expect out of a world famous Body Bear, we're never going to lower our standards, and that makes it tough to recruit, because there's people who are on the edge, and a lot of times we're like, no, he's not. If we don't believe someone has the potential to reach our standards, we're not just, like I said, we don't give handouts. We're not just like, you know what, like, just push them through. That's never been what the Body Bears are about, and that's never what they will be about. And, it's something to be said for, maintaining that. I mean, the world famous Body Bears have been around, don't quote me, but I believe since the 1960s. So it's been around a long time, and it's cool because we'll have a lot of world famous Body Bears from the 70s, 80s, 90s come to the barracks. And it's cool to hear old stories about 20, 30, 40 years ago, how the section was, how a lot of things don't change. A lot of things stay the same, but certain things are different. But yeah,
well, I think the one aspect there is you can't show, your face can't change, during the whole ceremony.
Yeah, so during a funeral, we only breathe through our nose. We're not allowed, we don't breathe through our mouth because that's distracting. That's distracting. If you were watching a funeral and I was breathing out of my mouth, your eyes would automatically go towards me because but we're stoic. We don't flinch. We don't make any grimaces with our face. Like, regardless of how heavy the casket is or how long we have to carry, that's why we train so hard, because like I said, the standard we have for a funeral is never going to change. So whether we're folding the flag or carrying the casket or anything we're doing, we're always trying to keep that demeanor. It's not about us, it's about the family. And that's why we train so hard and make sure we never let our emotions get the best of us. We always keep calm and, in the moment.
So the fucking flies on your nose, man. Like,
oh, the worst was
what's going through your head when you
just got to sit there and take it. Like, there's been, so a year ago, there was a cicadas. You know what those are?
Yeah, cicadas.
So there was, I guess it was a certain time where a bunch of cicadas were, I don't know if it was mating season or whatever, but like for 3 to 4 weeks, there was hundreds of cicadas at Arlington. And like, we'd be doing funerals and they just they make a lot of noise and they're pretty big. And these insects would just get on your face, start biting you. They'd bump into you and you couldn't move. You had to just sit there and you couldn't just swat it because we can't do that. You gotta just act like they're not there. But yeah, there's a lot of conditions. Like if it's raining, if it's snowing, if it's really hot, like those things can affect you sometimes. But that's why, once again, we train in different. When we're down a drill in the parking garage, we we train under a lot of different circumstances to ensure that our students and us on a whole, because even once you're on the team, you still got to continue to better yourself, you know? So we're always making sure we're ready for any circumstance. Because that's the beauty is at Arlington, not every funeral is the same. The weight of the caskets vary, the type of the casket, the conditions. Like if it's raining and you're marching on concrete and it's really slippery, you got to be able to stay poised and keep your balance because, you know, if you fall on your ass, that's game over. Like the casket's going to drop. So we're always like, you always got to be ready for the unexpected, but that's what makes it cool. You know, I like that because every day you don't know what you're going to get, good or bad. It could be something different where, you know, a lot of jobs or things is just very monotonous. So
you got to carry it above your heart, right?
Yeah. We carry the casket above our heart to honor the fallen and whatever they believe in, you know, religiously. So yeah, we're the only branch that does that. Once again, that's also why we have to get into the section, you need to be at least 220 pounds. And the strength test, this is when I'll say it. Yeah. So strength test, to pass the school, you need to bench press 220 pounds 20 times, at least 20 times. You need to behind the neck press 150 pounds for at least 20 times. We bicep curl with 150 pounds at least 20 times. And then squat 315 for at least 20 reps. So that some can argue, you know, what are certain exercises, but like it's been that way for so long. It's just a solidified. And all those exercises, you need different muscles and a certain level of strength to perform them. So there's been small tweaks to it over the years, but that's more or less our strength test.
When I first heard that on somebody else's podcast that you were on, the only one that really hit me was like, man, the squat would suck if it was right after a meet.
Even now it's still like, cause I'm doing the PFT in a month, but we'll probably do the strength test thereafter. Yeah. So luckily I got 4 to 6 weeks to kind of get my work capacity up. Yeah. But even then, like those other things I can manage pretty easily. Like today, after I did the bench sets, I did a burnout with 225 and I got 27 reps. So like, hopefully I get over 30 in 6 weeks. Who knows? But
the squat's different though when you're a power lifter, man, because you're used to bracing and staying tight. But to do reps, it's got to be like the opposite.
After 10, I'll do 10 reps pretty consistently. And then once I get to 12, 14, I'm just like, screw this. Like, I just don't even care about bracing. I just grind them out. I'm like, I want to get this done ASAP. I'm not going to reset. I'm not going to take 1 to 2 seconds to reset. I'm just going to start churning these out. Because once I get to 15 plus reps, no matter what the weight is, I'll be at 315. That's when the lactic acid burn is horrible. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, I could have done 5 more reps, but I just do what I got to do, you know, to get through it.
So that was looking through your open powerlifting meet results or whatever you want to call the listing database, whatever it is, that there's a big jump and there's this time period that you're trying to pass that. So let's just say 7 or 8 months. So obviously your training's kind of taking a back seat to a degree. Yeah. And then once that's over, there's another one of these, big jumps in your total. You already saw that happen once for different reasons. Then you saw it happen the second time. Did that solidify in your brain?
Yeah, because like I said, I basically didn't deadlift for 10 months. And then there was this meet. It's called the Pro Raw this year, the one in Missouri, but it was called the Showdown almost 2 years ago. And I graduated the section mid-April 2021. And that's when the invites started going out for this meet. And it was like 4 months, April, May, June. It was like July or August. I don't remember. Between 3 and I think it was about 4 months. Part of me was like, man, I kind of don't want to do this, but I want to finally get into a big, more of a high level meet. And I was like, screw it. What do I have to lose? Like, it's my first, like, regardless of how I do, I know I wasn't fully prepared. And within 6 weeks, I started gaining back. I think too, it's like my grip strength from doing ceremonial drill school. It was crazy. My grip was already fine. But a lot of the exercises I did, it built up my shoulders, my grip, like my forearms, my brachialis, all these muscles. So I gained back strength very quickly. And then I'm trying to remember, at that meet, I squatted 750 or maybe 733. Yeah, I squatted 733. I benched 4 something and I pulled 970. Yep. Almost, I went for 1,000 on my third and I missed it.
Yeah.
It was kind of decently close. But yeah,
your total, I mean, it was a PR total by a little bit.
After literally a year of not.
Yeah.
So at that point I was like, okay, like this, because like I said, I really didn't even think I could up my 948 because I was like, I haven't deadlifted for basically a whole year. But it goes to show you, it's like, I guess maybe just for deadlifts or maybe I'm holding all the lifts, like if you take time off, your body remembers, you don't know how long that's going to take. But yeah, it was that's probably the craziest thing to this day is like me taking a whole year off from powerlifting and then 4 months later coming back, even just getting a marginal PR in my total, but breaking a deadlift record. Like I really,
no, but that in a shorter period of time though, it ends up being 2,300.
Yeah.
So I would say, yes, it's that time off, but your starting point ended up being where your last end point was.
Yeah.
And then you're fresh, and then you build up upon that, and there's 200 more pounds on your freaking total.
Yeah. It kind of was setting the framework for what was gonna happen in a year or two. So
the bigger question that's going to come into this is when you get out in October, are you going to still remember these kind of things every couple of years?
Yeah. So I think because it'll be 8 years once I get out, I'm not going to get out and start training differently because I've seen time and time again what I'm doing works. And, I've been with the same coach for over 2 years now. So our formula, it's not going to change now that, I won't have as much physical. I think my shoulders, like, because carrying caskets taxes my shoulders a lot. Obviously, maybe how I train shoulders will change. But other than that, I'm not going to completely revamp what I did because I know for various reasons, like what you just mentioned, like it was a blessing in disguise what I did in the past. So yeah, like I'll definitely be excited to have better recovery in a way, but it's not going to make me think, oh, sweet, I can recover more. I'm going to do even more work. Like there's a limit to doing a certain amount of work. And like, it's not just, if I could do more sets, that's going to equal more strength, like everybody's different it's like saying, oh, well, if I benched 3 times a week instead of 2 times a week, my bench will go up. Like maybe, but like everyone's different with how much frequency of the lifts, because I tried benching 3 times a week for a while. And then eventually, like I said, the rotators just started. So I bench twice a week. And at certain times I'll squat twice a week. For the meet prep, I'll squat once a week. But now in the off season, I squat twice a week to do different variation to get more work capacity. And I tried deadlifting twice a week, and that was the worst mistake ever. Like I lasted 3 weeks before I was like, yeah, this is not. Because I was like, oh, all these high level people are deadlifting twice a week, so maybe there's something to this. But I don't know. With me, maybe it's, I don't know what goes into my poll, but once a week is good enough. It's not like the secondary week wouldn't really have any benefit for me. I've tried it 2 different times for about a month, and each time I'm just like this. Just my back and just everything else is just right away is just feeling, I'm like, this is not going to be a long-term thing, I'm
going to come back to your training after we take a break. But before we take a break here, I got to ask about this meet here in 2018. Mm-hmm. It looks like it might have been the only one with wraps, but it's also the only meet in your meet history that's a DQ, and it's for the deadlift. Because it looks like the squat was 677. Actually, it might have been the bench.
I remember that meet.
And then a 314 bench. And then did you get hurt? Did you pull out?
No, it was so.
Or did your knees hurt so bad from the wraps?
So that's when I learned. So I remember that I've learned since then. I take 7 to 10 days off before the meet for recovery because that was the last meet where I tried to be at work all week then show up to a meet because I ran like probably 6 or 8 miles that week. Like I said, I just didn't have a lot of leave days saved up, but I was thinking, I'm not expecting much, but maybe I'll slightly PR. But deadlift, I just bombed out because I don't remember exactly, but I just couldn't. Whatever I opened with, I just missed it all 3 times. It wasn't because of injury, but I was so beat up, and that was at the peak of me running 8 to 10 miles a week. So I was just kind of set up for failure, thinking I could work 12, 14-hour days, run every day, and then show up to a meet Saturday that same week. And like,
now before that, with these other meets, while you were in the military, were you not peaking before the meets?
I was peaking, but like I said, depending on how many leave days I had, maybe I would take a few days off before. But now, like this last meet, I took it was 8 days out. I took the whole 8 days off before the meet, and I took this whole week after, and I'm here right now.
Yeah.
So basically it's 2 weeks total, because as I've gotten stronger, it's even more like at least a week before the meet, I can't be at work, because I don't want that to affect.
Yeah.
Like, I need to rest and recover and prime my body for the meet, you know. So that was a lesson I learned. That
well, that's why I look for things like that, is because
Yeah.
those are usually where you have the biggest learning experiences.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what that was. So for you, that was time off before the meet.
Yeah, I showed up to the meet and I already felt like I had competed. That's how beat up I was.
Yeah.
I think we might have even did a hike that week. So I did like a weighted hike plus running. And yeah, I took no days off from work. And then I showed up to the meet like, well, this is not looking too good, but we'll just see what's there. And yeah,
the bench wasn't bad. You know, I'm not that bad. I mean, the squat wasn't bad, you know, for what you were squatting at the time.
But the squat took a lot out of me because I was already so beat up.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't account for that. But like I said,
there's reps.
I was like 23 or 24. So I was like, oh, I could do all that. I'm invincible. I don't need to really, I don't need to take a bunch of days off before the meet. I'll be fine.
Do you think the wraps helped you at all for that one? Because I could
never
say
really-
maybe the squat, because it is like 10 pounds, 30 pounds higher than the other ones. I could say it's the wraps, but if you don't know how to use them very well, I could say it could work against you.
The most I ever got, because like I said, I maybe got 20 to 30 pounds out of wraps. I really didn't.
So the squat was about the same as what it was beforehand.
Yeah, that's the way I squatted, but I would use wraps occasionally just to try them out, but I never could figure out how to get a good, decent amount out of them. That's why I ended up just the last several years, I just kept doing. And now it seems like sleeves is bigger now. Like,
yeah.
So I'm probably going to stay with sleeves for the imminent future. I might, in a few years, I might just go back to wraps just to see what's there. Because now that
the numbers are pretty close. When I looked at open powerlifting for total lifters, you know, in wraps and sleeves. See, that's weird though too, because somebody can lift in both and be on both lists.
Yeah. So it kind of skews the numbers.
It does. It's a hard one to kind of figure out. It seems about the same, you know, for the wraps and the sleeves, maybe a little bit more in the sleeves. You know, it's weird how that plays out. You know, it kind of changes a little bit every couple of years. Let's take a break real quick, then we'll come back and we'll talk about training. Today's episode is brought to you by Element, a tasty electrolyte drink mix with everything that you need and nothing that you don't. In other words, no sugar, no artificial coloring, no artificial ingredients, no gluten, no fillers, and no BS. With Element, I love the watermelon. The watermelon tastes freaking awesome. I drank 1 pack every day, no matter what. People that train out here, it's sitting out here for them all the time. The boxes don't last very long. Right now, Element is offering Table Talk listeners a free sample pack with any purchase. That's 8 single-serving packages free with any Element order. Get yours at drinkelement.com/tabletalk. The deal is only available through the link in the description. The other thing is, if you don't like it, you can just give it away to a salty friend and Element will give you a 100% refund. No risk, money back guarantee. Head over to drinkelement.com/tabletalk. Today's episode is brought to you by First Attachment. Are you looking for a supplement brand that truly understands hardworking athletes? Look no further than First Attachment. 1D's real world experience is what I would consider, and they consider, battle tested. I have known Justin Harris for pretty close to 2 decades. And if there's anybody that I trust with nutritional and supplement needs, it's Justin Harris. If you guys have followed me and have followed the podcast, you pretty much already know how I feel about the supplement industry. For me to get behind any brand, I have to trust the brand and I have to trust the person both. And I'm pretty sure you guys all know why. When it comes to creating formulas and putting products on the market, and there's nobody that I trust more than Justin Harris. While I love all of their products, I'd suggest that you check out the Field Rations and WTH first. Go to www.firstdetachment.com and use the code TableTalk10 to save 10% off each order. The link is in the description. Marek Health is a premium telehealth platform specializing in hormone optimization and preventative medicine. Are you looking to optimize your health in and out of the gym, improve recovery, sex drive, and quality of life? Have you tried speaking to your health professional about this and have gotten the cold shoulder, stereotyped, or just told it's part of getting older? You just go to marekhealth.com/tabletalk and you can create your own lab, or you can take labs that we've had set up for them, which are based upon the same labs that I've been doing over the last 15 years. Or you can use their guided optimization. With this, they'll put you in touch with a patient care coordinator, which is actually pretty cool because you get to sit down and speak to somebody that can understand what you're looking for from hormone optimization and the preventative medicine standpoint. After that conversation, they'll determine which labs that you should and which tests you should have done, and then from there get the labs done. They'll review those labs with you and put you in touch with one of their hormone optimization specialists that can determine which supplementation that you should use, over the counter or prescription. MarekHealth.com/Table Talk. The discount code is Table Talk. I want to let you guys know that we just had a limited edition drop on the website last week of new items, that sweatshirt, flannel, t-shirts, shorts. Basically, the limited edition items are the items that directly support the Table Talk podcast. So if you go to elitefts.com/limited edition, or actually just the link in the description, you can find the limited edition items that we have now, which there's the one that I like the best is the shit suck good great, which is all emojis. The designs I always like the best, right? They're the ones that don't sell for shit, you know, but they're the ones that I want to wear that I like the best. And there's the cigar one as well. And they're all there on the screen for you guys to be able to see. So if you go to elitefts.com/limited edition, the other thing that directly helps support the podcast that I haven't talked that much about is the Table Talk crew. The Table Talk crew is extra edition episodes that go out once a month. The content of those episodes are AMA related, question related, that come from the Table Talk Discord group, which is also part of being in the crew. When you're in the crew, there's dozens of ebooks that are in there. There's every seminar that we've ever done is put on there. There's courses that are put on there. There's series that have put on there. The original YouTube channel that we had for many years, before we migrated to the newer one, all that old content is on there. There's discussion groups for just general training, fitness, life, nutrition, basically everything that you can think of is on. So just go look at what that is, or better than that, just go to the description, click on join the crew. That helps directly support the podcast, which is how we're able to keep this thing rolling. We're back. Let's where I want to go now is I want to go to how your training's evolved since the first meet, right? So how are you training? Well, the first meet, yeah. How are you training for the first meet going back to 2013?
So it was a year and a half to 2 years. I did 531 Wendler. So that was, like I said, it's been so long, I couldn't tell you the exact specifics, but that was the template I followed. Like I said, it worked great. You know, it was just, I mean, when you first start, you just need something to follow. You know, I feel like anything, whether it's conjugate, linear periodization, if you stick to something, like, you're going to get something out of it, you know? It's not like rocket science, you know? Especially if you're just starting off, you just need structure in some way, you know? And I thought that was a great...
How long did you stick with that?
It was about I'd say about two, maybe 2.5 years. Back then, it was so long, I kind of don't remember exact time frames.
What was the reason why you pivoted away from it?
I joined the Marines. Yeah.
Okay.
Because, like I said, it started late 2013, and then 2015 November, joined the Marines for 6 to 8 months. I didn't train at all, or sparingly lifted weights because we had boot camp, and then MCT, which is where you do some other stuff. Then I had my job school, and I started kind of lifting some there. So basically, my whole first year, I didn't really, training was non-existent. And then once I got to Pendleton, I started lifting kind of regularly again. And
then what was that? Because now you can reach out to somebody, you can follow a template, but it still isn't going to mean shit when you still have to do all the other stuff that you have to do. Yeah.
So I got there, I'd say for 4 or 5, maybe 6 months. I was just kind of doing my own thing, just basic rep ranges. And then...
What's that mean, doing your own thing? Right? Like bodybuilding type stuff, or just...
It was like I'd start off with a compound movement.
Yeah.
And it wasn't structured at all. Cause like I said, I was just like, I just need to get back in shape. So it wasn't I wasn't too worried about what I was doing because I was like, I didn't lift much my first year in the Marine Corps consistently. So I was like, I just need to consistently do this, kind of figure things out again, maybe gain some weight and some muscle. So I just kind of stick to like a bodybuilding type, like a compound lift than a bodybuilding type structure with a ton of accessories.
So was it more like a bodybuilding bro split, or was it more like a powerlifting program without real heavy emphasis on triples and singles?
Yeah, the latter. So like I would work up to a set of 1, 2, 3 reps on squat, bench, deadlift, and then wouldn't really do much back down volume, but then I would just hammer accessories.
Got it. Like
a ton of accessories with dumbbells, cables, or some of both.
So you could say a 6-month conditioning block to get reacclimated to the lifts, but also put muscle mass back on that you lost.
Yeah. And then shortly after, that's when I did raw conjugate for like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Or almost 2 years, actually. Yeah. That was when I was with Gracie Vanessa and did her, like I said, her raw conjugate style. And it was cool. Like, it was fun. You know, I would do certain things I don't do now. Like, I love the camber bar. That was, man, it forces you.
I'm not really familiar with what the raw conjugate was. It 3-week waves on the squat? I mean, was your max effort stuff max effort all the time? Like all year, every week heavy to a single, or was it more structured?
It was a little more structured. It wasn't always just strictly singles, and it was 3 or 5 week blocks.
Got it.
Like I said, it's kind of like I haven't thought about it in years, so it's kind of like a lot of this stuff just escapes me right now.
Sure.
And once again, you know, I made decent gains on that. Once again, it was just hard because if I didn't go to California Elite or whatever gym and they didn't have bands or chains, like trying to replicate that was just hard. If you're not in a structure like this place where you have access to all the amenities you need, or measuring the tension in the bands and stuff. So I did that for 2 years, and then I came back. I went on deployment and went to Australia for 6 months, and then I came back, and the owner of the gym I would go to off base in Pendleton called Ironmongers, Rick. He did my meet prep before. Like I said, these are kind of vague, but I was with her a year and a half, 2 years. Then I was with Rick for 1 to 2 years. He did my preps through 2020 because Ironmongers is 20 minutes off base, Vista, California. Camp Pendleton's right outside Oceanside for people who don't know. So closest powerlifting gym to the Camp Pendleton, you know, and it was a great gym, and it was cool because back then, like I said, I was working long days, sometimes 5, 6, 7 o'clock at night. And most rec gyms, you know, the on-base gym closed at 9. And Rick, after a while, he realized I would have to work out super late. So sometimes he just let me close the gym for him. So I'd be there till 10, 11 at night, and I would turn off all the lights and lock all the doors. So if he didn't give me that opportunity to train that late, you know, it definitely helped me with my progress, because even though my work schedule was very hectic, he was understanding, and he trusted me to close the gym and train really late. And obviously, what other gym would allow me to do that? Probably none, you know?
What was the training structure like? How would you define that?
It was linear periodization, you know, because like
linear,
set weights, set reps. And that worked well. Like, I love that too. What I do now, since that, it's like my coach now, her name's Casey Romero. She gives me numbers. Okay, she gives me numbers, set, and RPE. So like, okay, you're going to do 400 for a single on bench. It should be RPE 8, let's say. If I'm warming up, that's kind of how I perceive RPEs. You warm up, you do your last warm, like, oh, maybe I need to lower it, but you still want to maintain that intensity, that RPE. Or maybe you feel great and you're like, oh, I can do 410 and still keep it on that same level. So that's kind of, because if she just gave me RPE without any guidance, I would just be like, oh, do a single at RPE 7. I'd be like, I don't know. I mean, it would just be weird. I need some kind of a goal, and then as I'm warming up, I'll kind of gauge, like, okay, if I'm expecting myself to do 400 and 350 didn't move right, then honestly, I should probably lower it then. But I still have that number to kind of shoot for, but then I can adjust it on the fly. If I had a long day at work, I didn't sleep well, etc., all these things that happen to everybody, you know?
Would you say, was it more linear now? Is it more block? How's it broken up?
It's linear.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happens, say, the meet's over, right? So that's done, and you're going into an off season now. So what will the next 3 months look like? Because you're going to focus on the technique, all that's in there.
Yeah.
But how will that look as far as the training of the accessories and different movements that you're going to put in for yourself?
So, like for the squat and bench and even deadlift, obviously the reps are for deads. I'm going to probably work up to 5, 6s, and 7s more often. Because like I said, like at least the next 6 to 8 weeks, I'm going to have to worry about getting conditioning to run as fast as I can. And then my strength test. So even if I wanted to push heavier numbers, it's not going to happen because I need to get prepared for both those things. So for squat, bench, and deadlift, it's going to be a lot of 4, 5, 6 range, maybe even 7s. Like I said, on deadlift, I used to be very opposed to reps because I felt, singles and doubles, all I need to do. But starting like 2020, when I was under her, she had me do even just 4s and 5s. I would bitch and complain, like, I don't need to fucking do this. But then I started seeing the fruits of that labor. Like I said, improving the work capacity, but also helping. It kind of helped with my floor speed too. Doing enough reps on deadlift, it started strengthening my quads. And sumo, I'm saying, obviously conventional is slightly different, but now I'm a believer in doing a little bit more volume. Now, obviously there's such a thing as too much. I'm not saying do it set to 10 on deadlift,
Well, with your deadlift, is the second and third and fourth rep, is your hip position higher?
So usually the first rep, because the way I set up, within 2 seconds, I grab the bar and go.
Yeah.
And with straps, it takes me 4 or 5 seconds to get adjusted. And normally I start to lose my brace some because I'm down there too long because I'm still trying to find the perfect strap where I can set up fast and not worry about that. And then when I do hook grip, the way I do hook grip and the way I set up straps with straps, I almost crank the straps down too much where my palm is really close to the bar and my arms tend to be bent. So like the first rep is always ugly, like regardless of the weight. And then after the first rep, I relax my arms a little bit. Every rep thereafter starts looking better and better because the strap starts sitting down lower and replicating my actual starting position. Now, I've tried figure eights, but I don't know. Those don't work for me. I just don't feel good wearing them. I know a lot of strongmen and a lot of people are big on those. But
where I was going is if you watch a lot of people and they do reps on the deadlifts, right? The hip position on the second and third is always a little bit higher. Actually, it should be where it is on the first one, but they haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah.
Where if your technique's more locked in, it's really not that much of a difference between the first and the second because you're already in that wedged good position. Where that's why I asked with that, because sometimes I'll push back on people doing reps only because of that, right? Because they suck so bad at getting the first one right. I'd rather have them pull one step back, reset up, and pull another one. So it's like a cluster set.
Yeah, you're practicing the skill and still
where that's not necessary for where you're at, where the strap thing's an interesting thing because I never thought about that.
No, it's crazy because the most I'd ever done with straps was 920, and it was like, I don't know, I had a little bit left in me, but like that's because at the time last year I was tearing my hands a lot, so I didn't have a choice because I didn't want to keep making it deeper and deeper. Yeah, and it's like I said, it's a blessing because I'd rather it be that way than I'm way better with straps. And then when I don't have straps on, it's like 50, 100 pounds less. So, but it's like when I do reps, that's why I'll lower the weight sometimes because honestly, like 800 for reps is probably the equivalent to what 850 is when I do hook, but I'm not going to do hook for 4, 5, 6, 7 reps, or whatever it would be. I'm just going to tear my hands up now. Like if I do that. So
what is your frequency of the lifts now? Or just say over the last year, because this probably isn't going to change until October.
Yeah, so I bench twice. So basically Mondays I'll bench. Monday's my straight bar, normal, heavierest day on bench. Wednesday I squat. Friday I bench again. Actually, my secondary bench on Friday. And that's, in the past, it's been blocked like 1 to 2 inch block press. Now it'll probably be either the Duffalo bar or the extra long pauses, things of that nature. Then Saturdays I pull. That's mainly because I used to deadlift on Wednesdays, but now it's just, if I do a full day of work and I'm on my feet all day, it's gonna be hit and miss if I can execute on deadlift because of the weights I'm doing now. So I just play it safe so I can sleep Friday night, know I can train whenever on Saturday. I don't have to go there late after work. I like my ideal time to lift is 11 noonish, maybe 1, because I'm still alert. I don't need to pound a bunch of caffeine to feel awake still. After 5, 6, I'm just like, man, I do what I got to do, but that's not when I want to lift if I have the choice,
Now, you said Monday squat, right?
Or Wednesday squat, Monday's
okay.
First bench day.
Okay, all right. Because for a minute there, I got confused, and I'm like, wait a minute, you're deadlifting on Saturday and then squatting on Monday.
Yeah, that'd be
a fucking quick turnaround. Then with the secondary bench day, well, no, forget the secondary. So with the main bench day, what do the accessories look like then compared to the secondary day?
So usually, right now it's like I'll do 1 to 2 rowing movements. It could be dumbbell row, lat pull down.
Right after the bench, you go into the rows?
Yeah, because normally my first bench day, I do a couple back movements and a couple triceps.
Yeah.
And then on Friday, it's mainly 1 to 2 chest and 1 to 2 shoulders.
Okay.
Yeah, shoulder movements. I'm just paraphrasing. Sometimes it's like 3 or maybe 4, but like those are just how the muscles I go about it. Like one day is focused on back and triceps, and occasionally every other week I'll do some biceps too, just to like. Some people are kind of against if you have to train biceps, but
you kind of have to because you have to do 115 per 20.
Yeah. I mean, I do it a lot anyway because we're curling caskets in a way. We're bringing them, but it's a symmetrical, and you don't want any muscle too weak. I mean, even on squat days, sometimes I do calf. Like every other week, I'll hit calves. When do I really need to? Maybe not, but like I just want to work everything to some degree.
Now, after your pull, what do you do?
So after deadlifts, I'll usually, so what I've always done the last 4 or 5 years is because I was always so quad dominant because I did, like I said, even before weights, I would do hundreds of body weight squats at times. So I developed my quads early on, but I didn't really start training hamstrings till I was 18, 19. I didn't even see what was the point of training hamstrings, right? I was like, big legs is just quads, right? I didn't care about glutes or hamstrings. So it might change in the future, but for every quad exercise, I do 2 hamstring kind of to even it out to make sure my quads don't get too overly dominant. So I'll usually do one leg. It's usually like some type of leg press variation or maybe a lunge. And then my favorite is you might have one in here. Oh yeah, you do. Cause I used it the other day. Like where you kind of lay against the pad standing and you're doing a hamstring curl standing up kind of. I like that one because it's just easy for me to isolate the hamstring. I don't mind doing the machine where you lay down. Yeah. But it seems harder for me to get a good squeeze and stretch.
So when you're doing that, you're looking more at muscle contraction and flexion.
Yeah. For when I do hamstring curls, it's pretty moderate weight. Like every machine's different with how it's weighted, but I'm not going extremely heavy because I don't believe with hamstrings, it is about connection to me. So I'll just do sets of 10, 12, 2 to 3 sets. I've learned, I said this in the video earlier, if that whenever gets broadcasted, but like I don't put a certain number of sets over my head. Because I remember seeing a video years back, one of the famous bodybuilders from the 90s, Flex Wheeler. I don't know if he said it in his interview or someone said it on behalf of him, but he said like, if you tell yourself you're going to do 3, 4, 5 sets, then without you realizing it, you're going to hold back. Like your first set, you're probably going to hold back some because you're like, oh, well, if I have to do 4 sets, I need to make sure I have. But if you just do every set all out, most of the time it's just 2, maybe 3 sets. Like today, a lot of the stuff I did after 2 sets, I was like, I'm good because every set, I wasn't thinking about, oh, I'm going to do 2, 3, 4 sets. I just treated every set equal, and then I did what I needed to do after like 2 sets. I'm like, I'm good. How do you just personally, how do you define that what I'm good is? Is it by the pump or by how fatigued the hamstring feels? It's a little of both. Like once I get a little bit of pump in the muscle and like I never go to complete failure. Like I'm trying not to perpetuate that. Yeah. But it's like normally if I were to say at RP, I'll go to RP like 7, 8 in terms of success. Like once I start feeling the lactic acid and I start feeling the strain a little bit, I'm not going to go too much further than that. Because like I said, if I already did a ton of work with compound movements, I don't believe in pushing accessories to the point where it's like a heavy squat, bench, or deadlift. You know, to me, accessories are to help build up the infrastructure of your body, you know, and also obviously they can't make you stronger in a way, but I've never believed in going extremely heavy on a lot of different things. Because of all things, and this is the way I think of it, like if I'm going to tear a muscle or completely destroy myself and I have to tell someone, yeah, I tore my hamstring doing hamstring curls instead of doing deadlifts, that would sound extremely dumb. Like, wow, dude, you tore your hamstring doing an exercise. Like it's one thing if you do it doing an actual compound lift, but I've heard of dudes, you know, tearing pecs or whatever, and they're doing dumbbell bench. I'm like, how do you hurt yourself doing dumbbell bench? That's like, you know.
No, on those accessories, are you controlling the tempo? Are you keeping it slower?
So I tend to be slower because like I said, I have imbalances in my lats and certain parts of my body. So I try to really have a certain amount of tempo. Cause I'm not just like, I've seen people where they don't really care about controlling it. They're just about optimal exertion and force, which I don't have a problem with that. Everybody has a different philosophy, but one that's helped me gain muscle and obviously get better proprioception in the muscle. Cause a big part of how I think people can get stronger is even if you don't gain weight is you have better connection with your body. You know, like it's like if you tell someone lats in the bench, if you don't even know how to fire your lats, that's going to be useless to you. Mm-hmm. If you can't even do a dumbbell row or a lat pull down and initiate your lats and feel them firing, then you trying to do that in a bench is pointless. You don't even know how to do it, period, you know?
Yes.
So that's kind of why that's kind of how I saw accessories in the beginning, and I still to this day. Now there are days where I go heavier than normal, but I'm not doing successive weeks of like 100, 120 plus pound dumbbells for dumbbell bench. You know, like I don't do sets of 2, 3, 4 reps on dumbbell bench. I'm not doing heavier weights for few sets, fewer reps. I like to do it more moderate in terms of 8 to 12 rep range for accessories.
No, I think that is, that's one of the things I teach in the train your ass off thing that I've been trying to teach people for years. It's something that I learned from my bodybuilding background that I pulled into powerlifting is, you know, a lot of it's to the same point that you just said. If you're trying to tell people to activate their lats, their triceps or whatever on a bench, they don't even know how to fucking activate them at all. Then you're kind of at a deficit working with them to begin with. Yeah. And then if you're just teaching them how to do a low row or whatever it is, they're just like pulling shit, you know? So it's just like bicep pulls or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they don't like it that they're going to use half the weight, you know, and go at a slower tempo, then flex the lats harder. But isn't that kind of what the position you are on the bench, for that? But I wonder how much wasted energy it is when they're just, I call it muscle fucking, when they're just muscle fucking up all those exercises with movements are they really going to make you fucking stronger in the first place? Yeah. But they're going to add muscle. So if they're going to add muscle and you can still get the benefit of adding the muscle from training the way that you're talking about and recover better from it, because obviously it's going to be easier to recover from that than muscle fucking twice as much weight, you know, up from that. And injury reduction is down because like you said, and I have done this long time ago. I pulled a hamstring once doing standing hamstring curls. Then I'm like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like what is the point of this? You know, it's like, this is stupid, right? And I don't believe I've ever admitted it until now. And it was, you know, 20 years ago. But I did. I felt like shit. It's all bruised. And I'm like, because I wanted to stack the fucking leg curl. Like, what? Yeah. This is dumb as fuck. Now I can't squat for 4 weeks. Yeah. You know, it's stupid. But a lot of people miss that, or they just don't do accessories at all, which is the other rabbit hole that I'm making an assumption based upon what I see. Are you seeing the same things when you're talking to lifters that either they don't do the accessories at all, or they're more concerned about how much weight they can move on things like a bent over barbell row with 455 or shit like that?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times I know it seems like people just don't do, like I said, obviously the compound lifts is what you're doing.
Sure.
But you got to understand the big picture, right? Because like you said, like your ability to contract muscles and obviously put on tissue, to a point, obviously, you automatically getting bigger doesn't automatically mean you're stronger. You have to put that into practice. But because I remember one time I tried like 130, 140 pound dumbbell rows, and it was literally just me. It was like a forearm curl because it was just too heavy, and I was like, okay, I mean, I could windmill or
it'd be a good Instagram video.
Yeah, I could lawn mower this up 10, 12 times, but I'm not getting anything out of it. And I don't care if someone can do more than me on a dumbbell row. Like it's not like I'm trying to one up people. Like I see what they do on accessories. I'm like, oh man, I gotta do 150s on dumbbell bench. I really don't care. I just focus on my own training and myself. And like I said, I believe in the more moderate approach a lot of times. So I'm not trying to like impress. Like if I posted my accessories and the weights, people be like, dude, he's not even. Like, they wouldn't be impressed at all. But that's not. Like I said, that's not why I do it. I'm not doing it to impress people or get clout on Instagram. So I'm not gonna do 500-pound barbell rows or do some crazy.
Now, when you're saying that you're not doing those movements to failure, if you're controlling the tempo and contracting, at each rep, would it be safe to say that you're probably 1 rep shy of failure?
Yeah, 1 to 2. So it's like failure to me is like if I couldn't do a whole like. Yeah, I get it to the point where I know I'm getting there. It's like, okay, I'm starting to break down. But like I said, if I went to failure on everything, that's just adding to the fatigue I already have from whatever compound work I did prior, Now,
by that, I mean, you're keeping the same tempo. Like you're not like picking the tempo up to do 3 or 4 more. It's the same tempo that just stops about 1 or 2 reps shy.
So usually I'll start off at a slow tempo. And then once I start getting fatigued a little bit, I'll increase the tempo slightly for a few more reps just to get them, get more of them in the tank.
Yep.
But then once my form gets even sloppier, I'm like, okay, I'm done. There's no, like, I'm not going to try to.
No, I get it now. Cause I think.
Can I make it harder at first? So then it kind of helps me get there faster. And then once I'm at that point, I'm like, sweet, I can feel it now. Then I can increase the speed a little bit. Yeah. And sometimes I mix it up too. Sometimes I go slow the whole time.
Yeah.
But more often than not, it's like I'll do 5 to 7 reps really controlled. And then I'll start to feel the blood flow hit and I'll start to feel the lactic acid build up. And then I'll just start going normal pace. And then once I hit that threshold where I'm like, I got 1 to 2 reps or something, most of the time that's where I.
Yeah. So I think these things are important to kind of define a little bit because I would say that the way that you did that set because of how it started, you actually trained a little past failure because had you kept that same tempo, you wouldn't have been able to got those extra 3, right?
That's a good perspective.
It's where this gets convoluted is when you're telling people how to do certain things. Like if I tell somebody, look, I want you to be trained to failure, and then they could assume, or let's say you train 2 reps shy of failure, then every rep they do is just bonkers. Right. That's a totally different failure.
Yeah. If you start off already like that, then it's too heavy.
If you start off slow and then it gets to that point where the only way you could get a couple more is to pick the tempo up a little bit, that's a different level of effort, right? Than if you did it and stayed in that tempo that whole entire time. So if you stayed in that tempo that whole entire time, that's one level of effort. You stay in that tempo as long as you can, and then you do more, that's a little bit more effort. So if you're to put an RPE on effort, see how convoluted this can get.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of times people don't think this shit through, especially if they're like trying to log it, right? Because whatever you do on that's also dependent upon how the fucking main lift went that day too.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're using less weight, not because you just suck at the hamstring curl, but the squat took more out of you.
Yeah. Like it's not like I have a set weight I have to do on the hamstring curl and it's like, I'm doing this weight or there's no negotiation. It's like, no, like if I'm more beat up, like you said, all over the way, it's not about my pride. It's about what can I do today within the intensity I have in my head, whether that's 20 pounds or 80 pounds, that doesn't matter to me, because that doesn't, like I said, I'm just trying to get a certain amount of work in. The weight is and isn't, it both is and isn't irrelevant. So I've just always had that mindset from the beginning. And like I said, I've seen a lot of people, they do these heavy heavy accessory movements. But like I said, then a lot of them, you know, they're.
Let's use a different example, because I don't know if you did it last night or not. You may have intended to, but then pivoted it off, or I just didn't pay attention because I was too busy smoking a cigar. The leg press after you squat. So did you do the leg press after you squatted, or you did? I know you.
I did leg extension.
So you did leg extension. Yeah. So let's say if it was leg presses, how would you go about doing that? Right? Are you going to push that weight wise, or do you not do them at all? The leg presses.
So normally I'll put like between 4, 5, 6 plates aside on the leg press. But like I said, if I was pretty beat up, probably 3 to 4 plates.
So you're not worried about the weight at all?
No, the weight, okay, like I said, I load it. I start with 1 or 2 plates. I just load it up enough to where I'm like, okay, 8 to 12 rep range. This is where I can do 8 to 12 reps today. Like it's not like last week I did 4 plates. This week I'm going to do 4.5, and next week I'm going to do 5. Because like I said, the whole point of, in my opinion, doing the leg press after squats, one, I'm recruiting the muscle. I'm recruiting the fibers in my quads, but also fatiguing them a little bit, getting blood flow in there. But it's not like, I don't think you should judge accessories like you do compound lifts. Like I said, you want to, if I'm in a cycle and I want to put 10 pounds on my squat every week for whatever reps and sets, I just don't have that same mentality for accessories. I know, and like I said, I have nothing. I'm open to, I'm open to all different. I don't think there's a right way to do anything. Like everybody has a different philosophy. But that's just always been my philosophy. And, you know, like.
Well, it seems to work, right?
Yeah,
right?
like,
I mean, your fucking legs are jacked as fuck too. So.
Yeah. I just think quads was the first thing I figured out how to target right. You know, because like I said, all the stuff as I did as a kid, riding my bicycle, running up hills, all that stuff just cued me. I mean, all that stuff is heavily quad dominated, you know? But yeah, hamstrings, it took a lot longer.
How did you, because the quads are pretty easy to mentally connect with.
Yeah,
right?
you see
it burns
them,
like a motherfucker too, right?
Yeah.
How was it for you to mentally connect with the hamstrings?
So I was just kind of playing around with whether I'm standing or laying. It's just the position I am on the pad. Like I would play around with leaning forward or maybe leaning a little more upright, whatever position where I could start to feel, and I almost kind of squeeze my glute slightly, because it's weird. Like when I squeeze my glute and go to curl my hamstring, it just seems like, for me at least, it helps me target it slightly more. So little things like that I just experimented with from years of doing it. And if I didn't feel anything that day, like I was like, okay, I need to figure something out. And then I'd watch YouTube videos or just pick people's brains, like, hey, how do you do hamstrings, or what do you think about when you're targeting this certain muscle? And like I said, just get different perspectives. And then eventually you figure it out by yourself, and whatever cues you use, that's just dependent on how you think about things. You know, like you said, like the cue for anything is not universal for everybody. So I kind of just, I lean my quad into the pad slightly, kind of contract my glute a little bit as I stretch the hamstring up. And that's kind of what I found works for me. I don't know, just laying a little bit into my quad. It just takes my quads. It prevents my quads from doing anything. And then I'm able to just use my hamstring to a little bit of glute, but my hamstring to activate it as I curl it up.
Then how did you go about figuring out how to do that same thing with the glutes?
So for the longest time, I would do hip circle.
Yeah.
You know, hip circles.
How so? Would just side stances?
I would do side, what are they called? Side marches or side? Yeah, I would basically do a bunch of different, like sidewalks, clamshells, you know, just trying to like stuff with the band on, just that would fire up my glute. That's why tomorrow when I deadlift, you'll see right now my favorite glute thing is I'll do a one-legged, how would you call this? It's like a one-leg get up. It's like one of my legs, I squeeze that glute, and then my other leg straight as I get into the air. Oh, a one-legged glute bridge. I think that's the official term for it. So I don't really do the sidewalks anymore, but I like the glute bridge because it kind of cues my core and teaches me good pelvic alignment while I'm warming up for deadlifts. And obviously your glute, like for me, especially because I do sumo, if my glutes aren't firing, that affects me a lot. It's one of the things I always make sure to do is make sure I do something to get my glutes firing before I deadlift. And that's the go-to exercise right now for me, is a single leg glute bridge.
The reason why I'm digging into all this is because having the ability to know what the hamstring firing feels like and the glute feels like, you know, earlier on, you know, allows to the point where, say 3 years ago, 4 years ago, your deadlift technique didn't just miraculously happen. Like, you have to figure it out, and then you have to figure out, are your glutes engaging and your hamstrings engaging? But how do you know if they're engaging if you don't even know what the fuck they feel like from the beginning? So if it wasn't for all, I'm going to make an assumption here, tell me if I'm correct, if it wasn't for all that previous stuff, you know, trying to learn how to engage and train the glutes and the hamstrings, and trying to figure that out when you're trying to lock in your sumo technique becomes a way bigger challenge.
Yeah, like I said, it's kind of like what we said about the lats and the bench press. Like that's why I believe like you can still get a lot stronger without gaining body weight, because it's all very neurological. More so is just muscle, building muscle and hypertrophy. Your ability, as you get more seasoned of a lifter and you get more and more proficient in doing all exercises, not just the compound movements, but dumbbell rows, side laterals, like the better you get at accessories, just perfecting accessories, like I said, that mind muscle connection, your ability to contract any said muscle during whatever movement you're doing, like that's a great point you just brought up now that I think about it. Like me deadlifting 5 years ago till now, like what I feel when I set up and I spread the floor, my proprioception is probably like 2, 3, 4, 5 fold in terms of like the contractions in my contractions in my muscles throughout my body. Like I feel way more in tune, like with the ground and with my whole body when I deadlift, because for years and years, I've done all these exercises with, I'd say, decent form. Yeah. You know, I have built my muscle up to a degree, but I've also trained, like I said, the ability of your muscle to like, to cue and fire when you need it to.
What would it be safe to say that it also allows you to know when to actually initiate the pull? Because you're wedging into a certain position. If you initiate too soon, you're fucked. If you initiate too late, you're fucked. You know, so that tension that you're feeling on your glutes, your back, your hamstrings, or wherever it is, creates this feedback loop.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great way to put it. Because since I've done this for so long, I know, okay, when I spread the floor and my quads start firing and I externally rotate my glutes, when I do all that, it's almost in a one fluid motion because of how I set up. It's like once I feel the muscles firing to a degree, I know I'm ready to pull. It's crazy you brought that up, because I never really, a lot of these things I don't think about because I've been doing it so long, it's muscle memory. Yeah. But when I do think about how I pull now compared to like 3, 4, 5 years ago, I have a better idea of when to start the pull because of my ability to fire the muscles is so much better. So I know exactly what it needs to feel like before I'm ready to like break the floor with a deadlift.
There's a lot of tactical cues, right? Because I learned this just coming up through multiply shit, where the multiply shit was giving me tactical cues. You know, from the start, it's like, shit, this doesn't feel as tight where it's supposed to feel. So I'm not where I need to be. So I need to shift where I need to be, you know, where, you know, even with your feet are going to be a certain tactical feeling of where are they when you, hell, even before, as soon as you grab the bar and try to put force down a little bit, it's like, nope, not right. You know, and you know to adjust. It's crazy how much shit goes into this cheating sumo thing, right? Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard to cheat. Yeah. That's kind of what we're saying, right?
Yeah, I mean, because
I still think you need to make the shirt.
No, we will. No. Yeah. I'm telling you, it's gonna blow up.
So it's all those things over, because the other thing I want to state with this is it doesn't stop either, because as your weight changes, you have to reestablish new baseline, you know, new tactical cues to be able to go from, right? Especially the difference between 242 and at one point when you end up closer to, you know, 280. Yeah. You know, that's going to be another thing to be able to navigate. where actually you've had, how big of a swing have you had now? Just not weight class, but actual true body weight swings.
You're talking about the last
the last 4 years of competing, because one of them was 308, right? Your biggest total was 3, but you weren't 308.
No. So let me remember. So when I was in ceremonial drill school, I was around 255-ish, maybe 260. And then when I competed at the showdown a year and a half ago, I was around 264, 265 body weight. And then when I was 308, I weighed 270, and I drank a gallon of water to weigh 276 at weigh-ins. For the pro, I was like 266 to 267. And I was 260 pounds this prep. And it's crazy. I weighed myself, right before the workout, I was like 272. So I probably woke up at like, so in the last week, I've recomped right back up to high 260s. But that's because I'm eating a lot of food since the I'm just enjoying myself. So
makes me wonder what's going to happen when you get out.
Yeah, no, I'm probably going to gain some, what do they call it? Like, I'm definitely going to
fat.
No, it's like the freshman 15, like they say, when you go to college, you gain 10 to 15 pounds.
Yeah.
That didn't happen to me, but
yeah. Well, you're playing football.
Yeah.
Who were some of your early influencers?
I'd say
early influences, because influencers is a different word now, right? Yeah,
it's totally different.
Yeah.
I'll definitely say, Dan Green, just because back in the day, 5, 6, 7 years ago, he was the most stoic of them, like he was always, like he was there was a lot of guys back then who were really raw, like aggressive, loud, yelling. And he was like one of the few guys who's just kind of like me, just a calm demeanor. Like you could tell deep inside he was like, he was motivated. His senses were heightened, but he wasn't just like, he wasn't headbutting the bar, just like yelling and stuff. And so it kind of like,
if that's not your personality, did you think that you had to do that?
No, I tried it at first. Like for 6 months, I tried getting really aggressive, but then it was just so taxing. Like to get in a mental space where you call on this anger and aggression, I noticed it would like, what's it called? It would fry my CNS just as much as a heavy lift did. Cause you like the amount of effort it takes to get into this frame of mind where you're all messed up and like you're aggressive and stuff. Like I said, I have nothing to call on anyway. Sure. Like, but like, even if I did, like, I still can't think of this day of anything, but it's like, to me, it's just better if you're always you're in between, like you're not overly stimulated, but you're not too low in the stimulation thing, because like I said, that's just a pain and a bitch and a half if you have to like, and imagine doing that for squat, bench, and deadlift for 9 attempts. Like that's a lot of energy and effort just to like get yourself psyched up. Whereas if you're kind of more fluid and you could just like, it's not that hard to get dialed in. Like to me, it's not like I don't have to mentally prep myself to get dialed in. It's kind of like, I'm always just like in the moment, just like I'm focused, but it's not like, I'm not just like, I don't have to sit there and just mentally prepare myself to go do something.
Yeah. Who were some of the other ones?
I remember I started trying hook grip because of Vince Urbank. He was, back, for those who don't know, 10, 15 years ago, was he the first? He wasn't the first American to pull over 900, was he? Or he at least held the American record.
No, because I think you go back to Gary Heisey and you got people.
Oh, yeah.
That, but the first
308. I think he was 308.
Maybe the first to make it popular, to bring it back to the spotlight. Because you have like Powerlifting USA magazine, and then you have like nothing. And then you have, the internet that comes around to make it popular.
Yeah, to make it actually.
Yeah, so other things were happening before, but nobody knows. Because it's not like the magazines are nowhere, right? So nobody really knows.
Gone.
Yeah, yeah. Outside of, were they all dead? Were they all deadlifters?
I mean, it was, like I said, Vince Urbank because of hook grip. Dan Green just because he was overall, he's jacked and overall solidified and strong. Trying to think like I really didn't have a ton of people because I got into the sport and I wasn't too mainstream. Like I didn't watch a lot of like lifters. Those are just few. I only knew about a few like high level powerlifters my first few years because I wasn't really diving deep into YouTube or anything yet. I would see demos and stuff online about lifting, but I wasn't really following the cream of the crop powerlifters at the time. Obviously, everyone would see videos of Pete Rubish because that was viral and he was known for his basement lifting videos. Yeah, like I'm just thinking those floors had to have been broken multiple times. Like the amount of times he pulled 700-800 pounds in that garage. Yeah. So that's all I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah.
How is we went over it a little bit, but if you were to summarize it a little bit more, how is your peaking for a meet strategy changed outside of, the one disaster, so when you have, actually, let me reframe the question. If you could say after October, right, when you can optimize better to peak for a meet, what do you think that looks like?
I really wouldn't. I don't think, at least for the peaking, it's not a lot's going to change. Because like I said, normally, well, I won't have to take leave anymore because I'll just have a more flexible job potentially. But my last heavy dead will still be 2.5, 3 weeks out, more or less. And then bench around 10 days out, last heavy bench. Squat 2-ish weeks out or something, last real heavy squat. So I don't think any of that will change. Because like I said, even me being in a potentially less physically demanding job, I still think all those things will still apply. Like I said, I could be wrong, and a year or two later, I could come back to you and just be like, oh, Dave, you were right. Something did change. But I really think what I have going now, it's not just working because I'm in the Marines and it's sustainable for that. But I think even when I get out and I change careers, I don't think I'm really going to change anything because the last few meets, it's really shown, okay, this seems to be what works for me. And, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And obviously there's extenuating circumstances, but
without, take the weight cut out of it. So if you don't have a weight cut, what does the last week look like?
Yeah, I don't really lift the week of the meet. I'll just walk, get my steps in. Cause my last workout is a Saturday, a week out.
Yeah.
Deadlift, last workout. And then the week of the meet, I just rest up, just eat quality food. And like I said, I don't do cardio, but just walk. I usually get 8 to 9K steps a day. So I just keep those habits up. But yeah, I know people who will train days before and stuff, but I don't see a reason to do that.
Yeah.
Like this has worked for me for the last few years. And I just think,
any more emphasis on visualization or mental imaginary, before?
Yeah. Usually because I'm not working out, I have more time just to do whatever. So like I said, I'll start priming. Like for instance, this last meet, I looked up on Google Maps, or not Google Maps, on Google. I found pictures of the Metroflex gym. I screenshotted a bunch of the pictures of all parts of the gym, and I just stared at them. And then I started imagining myself in that gym, just so I'm already like, when I showed up there, it didn't feel as foreign because I was already like, okay, this is the layout of the gym. This is where we're going to lift outside. This is probably where we're going to warm up for squat, bench, and then deadlift, etc. So that kind of just mentally is preparing me for all the things. Once again, it makes you feel more prepared. That's all the easiest way I would describe it.
Yeah. This was actually a topic that you had on topic that you wanted to discuss is social media influence.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts there?
I think I just meant this in the way that I don't do certain things for Instagram. That's why a lot of times I don't post for pockets of time.
Yeah.
Because I'm not worried about like making content for sponsors or something. I'm just worried about sticking to my plan. And a lot of times the things I do are very monotonous, but that's just how it is. You got to build yourself up before you get to that point. So a lot of times I'm like, okay, I'm repping 650 on deadlift. What's the point? Like, obviously my PR is over 1,000. So who's going to care but now I'm starting to think maybe at least for in the future, I'll just post a lot more vids because who cares, but I just don't want to get to the point where I care enough about social media where it could possibly distract me and maybe think, oh, I need to do certain things in order to appease my audience or something, I
think where people screw that up, well, it's It's funny because I remember John Meadows telling me one time he loved Instagram because it makes him train that last set a little harder. You know, maybe that works for like bodybuilding stuff.
Yeah.
But or the video didn't work, so he had to do another set. You know, so it's stupid shit like that. But where I think if people are trying to build that social media presence, they forget that people want to follow people and they want to follow a story. Like they're not following somebody just because of the PRs. You know, and if that's all they do is put out PRs, then there's nothing to follow.
Yeah.
Because there's no story with that, right? So if, say, I was to advise you on how to build a social media presence from where you are now, there's a story playing out between now and say a year from, well, the pro-am, but not only that, but you're going to retire from the Marines. You're going to have a new career that you're going to work into. You know, it's more than likely it's going to be working with people to help them get stronger. It's going to be in this career field. There's a whole story, right, that can be played out that people will be like, well, fuck, you know, does he have a client? What's he doing? You know, where's his working? Now, there's certain things I do think that, you know, I don't want to post about like wife and kid. There's certain things I'm not going to post about or people shouldn't post about. But if they're trying to build that presence, then tell your story. And the training's just part of your story, and the monotony of it, that's part of your story, right? When all it is a max lift, what story is that? It may get somebody popular for a short period of time until they can no longer hit that max lift. And then all of a sudden they want to transfer and be the coach.
Yeah.
They're like, what the fuck, dude? Now their identity, it's confused to whoever's following them. You know, so there's definitely good and there's bad. Yeah. Where to me, it's always been a weird thing because I come from an earlier generation. Like, why in the fuck would I want to try to beat what somebody did online? That's dumb as fuck to me. Like, if the goal is what's going to happen on this date, then why am I going to risk fucking that up? You know, for something that may even have fake plates on it for all we know. Yeah. You know, so it may not even be that number, you know, which is a crazy thing, but it happens. When it's like the kids that were in here last night, or when you're traveling, what's the most, I already know what this is. Like, what's the most frequent question that the lifters ask you?
Usually just about deadlift, you know, obviously like they don't. Yeah. And then,
well, let's stay on that because I don't think they understand, right? Like they want the magic cue.
Yeah. It's just tough because the lifter out, like thinking about what I thought about 8-9 years ago, that's like a lifetime ago for me. So a lot of times it's like, I try to paraphrase things simply, but like I said, a lot of people I've just told them, like I've told them certain vague, obviously, the importance of your glutes firing during deadlifts and like your ability to create tension and root through the floor. Those things are important, but it's just like I made enough mistakes till I just figured out full circle what worked for me. That's like the most simplistic way to put it, but no one wants to hear in this day and age. It could take 5, 6, 7 years for you to finally like flip that switch and start to like get towards your goal. Like no one wants to imagine doing something for upwards of a decade, you know, that's a long time and commitment.
Maybe flipping some of the things back, right? So if they ask you and you can ask them, like, do you know how to engage your glutes? I'm going to guarantee 9 out of 10 times they're probably going to say no. Yeah. Right. And then you throw back at them, well, how do you think you could engage your glutes? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Because it's
poison the question to where they have to think about it in a different.
Yeah. Because what they're seeing on social media now is different than what you were seeing. Yeah. Like a lot of it is out there, but it's also really convoluted. And there's a lot of assumptions that we just assume that they know how to engage their glutes. Yeah. But if they don't, you know, then that's that whole process of, you know, you can tell them you need to stack all these things. But if they don't know how to actually flex certain things, how are they going to stack? Right? Like, how are they going to stack their knee over their ankle if they don't know how to fucking turn their knee out? Or you see what I'm saying? Or position
these
the hips.
Basic things that you think they already know, but they obviously don't know because when you ask them, like, it exposes that.
And then when you flip it back on them, maybe they'll see.
Yeah, that's what I'll start doing, to be honest. Because then that way, like, because I worry about just talking over people's heads. Because I've been doing, like I said, the things I think about now compared to then are totally different. You know, it's not like, if I just talk to someone, I just go rambling on and they're just like, okay, what am I supposed to get from this?
Yeah.
I think that's a better way to.
I don't think you do that though.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard you talking to the kids last night. You're not talking over people's head. I've seen people purposely.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not purposely. I've seen people talk over people's heads in such a way that I don't quite know, like, why the fuck they're doing it. Because they have to know that what they're saying is not being received. I'm sure you've seen it.
Yeah.
You're sitting there like, what the, like you're trying to put it together in your head and you kind of know, right? And you're like fucking a paragraph behind where they are. And they're talking to like a newbie, you know, and you're like, what the fuck? You know, we can break it down a little bit more simple. What are, with the lifts that you've done, tell me about a time that was the most memorable lift that you hit. The way I like to frame this question is, as I was coming up, and I don't know how it was for you, you know, you have people. Actually, there's very few people that are actually supportive of what you do in powerlifting, especially at the beginning. And they always tell you shit like, oh, man, at the end days of your life, the last thing you're going to be thinking about is your fucking powerlifting and lifting and all this. And, you know, I've been close to those days a couple of times. And yes, I did. You know, there were certain things I thought about that were pretty, I'm thinking about my family and other shit too. I mean, there's a lot of things you process really fucking fast, but there's some lift shit in there too. You know, training stuff or meat lifts or whatever it is. What are a couple that come to your brain?
It was probably in 2020, the first time I broke a world record. Cause like I said, shortly after I already started plotting to bigger and better things. Yeah. I remember for a day or two, it was just like, I just couldn't believe it, you know? Because I really didn't know if it ever happened, but it was just weird to say, wow, in this weight class, I have the biggest deadlift in all, like, in every federation and every place in powerlifting. So that was.
What was it like right after you pulled, actually before they gave you after you saw the lights, what was that like?
I knew I had it. Like, the moment I locked it out, I knew I had it.
Well, kinda. I mean,
like, I don't know. Like now, like,
you know.
Yeah, I know. Like, I was positive I had it, but like, it's like after the meet, it was kind of just like, it was like, oh, I did it, but it wasn't really set. And then the next day, I was like, oh, like I woke up, I was like, damn, like I was sore as hell, and then I was like, damn, I really did it. Like I knew I did it yesterday, but like this really like. What
meet was it?
It was the 2020 when I told 2100.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I also broke 2K for the first time, but that was like first time I actually broke an all-time record. And it was kind of like up to that point for a year or two, like I said, once I started pulling over 8, I kind of got confidence, but even around then, I still doubted myself at times. But like I said, it happened by chance. That day I was just hoping to break 900. When I pulled 948, that solidified in my mind that like I could do bigger and better things. So it was like a springboard for my confidence. I was like, I stopped at that point. I was like, I can do this. You know, I can keep pushing it. Not just deadlift, but even the total will come around. I have what it takes. You know, I'm gonna keep working or keep consistently doing all the little things, and then eventually, I don't know when. Eventually, it's gonna come around.
I used to joke around and say, and so I wonder if this is true for you as well. That the this is fucked up. Like the best compliments that you can ever get in the fucking sport of powerlifting is after you do something big, and then you're in the bathroom taking a piss, and then somebody comes in and says, "Hey man, good deadlift." Right? Because who says anything to anybody in the bathroom in the first place, right? So, and, but that when it kind of clicks in. So have you had that same stupid, because at the meet, people afterwards, they're excited for you.
Yeah.
Not everybody, but most people are excited for you. Right. And then you go online so it's actually before that. So you have that, then there's a certain period where you're in the hotel room by yourself most of the time. What dawns in on you then?
Well, for that meet, it was near penalty. It was at the gym I trained at, so I just went back to the barracks and it was
different. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just kind of like I went back to my normal.
Do they even give a fuck? Like when you go back there with the people that you're
I mean, some did, but like I said, I'm not one to point it out. Like I don't just go out of my way to tell people. You know, like nowadays it's pretty common. Like people will bring it up, but I never bring it up on my own behalf. Cause it's just one of those things where that's never been who that's never been who I am. I'm not one to like, hey, guess what I did, guys? Like,
Yeah.
it's just, but now word gets around pretty fast at times. So it's pretty common now. Like, oh, don't you deadlift like 1,000 or do this or that? I'm like, yeah, you know, I do that.
A few times. How many times have you pulled over 1,000?
In training.
No, fuck that. In a meet.
Yeah. That's the cool thing is I've done twice as many pulls in competition as
Mhm.
I have in training over 1,000. Let's see.
The reason I say that is not insulting is
Yeah.
because it doesn't count.
I've done it 6 times now.
Yeah. See, that's something
Yeah.
to hang your hat on.
And I've done it 3 times in training. That's the cool part is and that's what I tell people sometimes is when it's like, oh, like touch it a certain way. I'm like, look at what I've done. Just look at what I just told you. 6, 2 to 3, and then 6. Like I'm done twice as many pulls and comps than I have in training at that certain weight. Like,
well, where it counts is, you know, where it's in the meat.
Yeah.
You know, the other stuff, it's so be it. You know, it doesn't make any sense with that. Along those same lines, what are some of the funniest things that you've seen, you know, happen in the gym? Let's go funny. Just last night you were telling about a story where you squatted at 700 and you had like plywood for a side spotter.
Oh yeah. So I'll say that. So my last heavy squat for this prep, it was like between 2 and 3 weeks. I don't remember exactly what day, but I did 770, and I was deadlifting at this gym, this home gym I go to called DMV Iron, and they had a bunch of plywood in the corner. And I didn't really notice when I was warming up. I was using the mono because they're going to have a mono at the meet. They only had one mono, it was in the corner. But there was like 5-6 sheets of plywood stacked tall against this wall. And as I was warming up, it was like my second last warm up. And then I went to low plates for my last warm up. And I was like, shit, the plywood is pushing out so much. I'm not going to be able to have a side spotter on that side. There's no room for someone to side spot me. And then I did my final warm up. It was like low 7s. And then I just thought about it. And I was like, well, guess I'm going to do this without any spots. And there was no, I don't remember for that harnesses. I didn't even use harnesses. It was just me. And it kind of like that adrenaline, it kind of got me more heightened because I was like, if I don't get this, I don't know what's going to happen. Like I could tear a muscle, the bar could roll down my back and I could just get crippled. But deep down, that kind of excited me knowing that like, if I don't get this, like something's going to, I don't know what's going to happen, but something's going to happen. And I got it. And then afterwards I was like, damn, I just did it's kind of a mental boost. I'm like, wow, I just never done 770 without any spotters before. But one time, something even funnier, this was like 4 or 5 years ago. I come off a long layoff of squatting heavy and I worked up to like 660. And I think I just set up wrong out of the rack. And when I went to squat, I literally fell onto my knees. With 670, I was like on my knees, trapped against the rack, and I had one dude behind me back spotting. And then after like 30, 40 seconds, eventually people came and helped. Mm-hmm. But it's crazy because I don't know if it's just how I fell on my knees, but I didn't hurt my knees at all. Like nothing happened, but like I was just literally like pinned against the rack. The bar's pinned against the rack. I'm like 2-3 inches from the ground. I'm on my knees. Anyone who was there, I wish there was like a camera at that time. I don't even know if I ever got on a video. Well, like I said, that was really scary, but also pretty, afterwards, I was like, I'm a fucking idiot. Like that was pretty hilarious. I started laughing after that. I was like, yeah, I bought that squat.
But one of the things that resonated through when I was going through your material was, you know, you're keeping your training within a certain parameter as far as how hard you're going to be able to push things because you don't want to get hurt for work. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because if I get, here's the thing is if I get a catastrophic injury and I tell everyone at like my boss at the Marines, they're not going to like, it's not going to be like, oh, it's fine. Just, you know, you got insurance and recover. No, they're going to be pissed. Like if you're in the military and you hurt yourself doing something non-work related, like at least in the Marine Corps, that's not like, they're not going to be just fine with that, you know? So it's like, I have to be careful because if I hurt myself, I don't know what could happen, but like, it's not going to be a fun talk with the boss, you know? If it's like, oh, I tore my quads straight off the bone. He's like, oh, so you're going to be out 6 months, huh? And then like, you don't know what that's going to come to, but Yeah, I'm not.
How often does that play out in your head training for a meet?
I don't think about them. Like I said, I know
you don't dwell on
Yeah.
it, right? But there's going to be certain times where because you're basing your training on a projected RPE, right? That's a good way to look at it, right? Because it's a projected thing.
Yeah.
You know, so you're going to obviously go on the lowest projection you possibly can. Would that be safe to say?
Yeah. I mean, there's been a few times during all the preps where I had a number in mind, but I knew realistically, like, it wasn't going to be there. And I was like, that's kind of an ego check, because to be able to tell yourself, hey man, it's not there today, I have to tone it back. Obviously, is that the best thing to do? No, but like, it's better than me potentially getting hurt, me overshooting, or a combination of both, you know? Just tanking my CNS because I fail a lift, or possibly tweaking something because I know I didn't have any business doing that weight because things weren't feeling great warming up, or my muscles weren't firing, or just for some reason it just didn't feel right. I just kind of trust my gut sometimes and just say, you know what, I'm not gonna do what I had in my head to do, but I'll do whatever I can, you know, the next best thing below that.
How often have you had minor tweaks on anything?
The only muscle I've ever tweaked is my quad. Well, my pec minors felt tight at times, but I've never strained it or anything. And in my quad, it was mainly a year and a half ago when my shifting was really bad. Like, you know, the knee cave you saw, that used to be way worse, to the point where I tried to push out of the hole and it felt like I was only squatting with my left leg, because my right leg would cave so much. So I had a few, like 1 to 2 times I would feel a little tinge in my quad, but within 2 to 3 days it was gone. So it wasn't like anything, but that was just because literally I was basically squatting on one leg because I just couldn't stabilize my right side. And
so it's safe to say the strategy that you're using is working. Yeah,
I mean, because I believe, you know, another 4 or 5 years I could keep getting stronger and pushing competitively. Because I don't want to wait till I'm past that point where I should be hanging it up, you know. Realistically, I don't know when that is, but I'll kind of know, I think, just.
How do you think you're going to know? Like, everybody says this fucking shit, man. Nobody knows.
I kind of, like I said, I already know from football, like, that was more of how I was feeling. I wasn't beat up yet from football because I was only 19, but like, this is the hard part, is you'll never truly be satisfied till you're fully done and you know you can't do it anymore. But like, once I break a few totals, and then obviously keep pushing the deadlift up to a point, it's like there's only marginal. If I realize I just have a few marginal things and I'm just like, is it really worth prepping 3, 4, 5 months and doing all the things I need to just to put an extra 2-3 pounds on a lift, and in that not even is guaranteed? Like, at that point, it's kind of like, after a year or two of that, I'll be like, okay, like, maybe I might put 5 pounds this year, maybe, and I've already done this, and this. Like, do I really need to push? Do I really need to cement myself anymore? Or am I just fine where I'm at? And it's kind of, that's what I'm thinking in my head, is like, when I get to a point where I've done all the things, I kind of, like I said, the total, I've already broke the deadlift in 3 different weight classes. I'm anticipating pulling 500 kg. Once I do that and break a few totals, and then 3, 4, 5 years, I just continue to come back and get them a few times. After that, I don't really know what is there really left to do after that. You know, what is there that I can do that can really further cement myself, you know?
What drives you more, the world records or just personal records?
I'd say it's
No, I'm sorry. What drives you more, like the personal records or winning?
It's the winning. That's, like, I don't want to get into matchups, like compete against the best. Because like I said, that's the funnest meets, is, like I said, the pro, when I compete against Zach, even though I lost, like, knowing I was competing against the best 275er in the world who owns the total record. Like, you know, and this last meet was great, but that's why, you know, like, the competition of the meets matter to an extent to me, because it's more exciting too when you're up against bigger guys. You know, there's a lot more excitement, things that can happen. You know, a lot more people are gunning for, I don't know, the dots or the total or whatever. Yeah, you know, it's just about winning to me, because winning this long, continuing this pace and also continually winning. And I guess part of that is continue to set records too, but like, they go hand in hand, you know. As I get more, my total gets more defined, I know I'll start winning more, because I'll finally connect the dots, like the squat and the bench with the deadlift.
Well, the reason I'm asking this is there's, you know, people that are in this for a long period of time it's always easy to find it's always easy to find a reason to stay. Right.
Yeah. You can always convince yourself.
Yeah. Another sports, football or whatever, when you're done, you're done. Like once you walked off college football, you're fucking done.
You're not ever doing it.
You might play in the backyard somewhere, but you're done. Yeah. Right. Or if you're in the NFL and you just contracts up, you're done. You know, in powerlifting, there's always a fucked up way to stay around. Yeah. Right. So let's say right now it's pushing for, you know, the all-time total record. Mm-hmm. Right. And then if that gets to this really weird place where that's probably not a possibility, but I can still keep hitting deadlift world records, then that can skip to, you know what, I can keep hitting deadlift world records in a submasters category. Oh, yeah. You know what I'm saying? It can keep going and going and going. Yeah. Is your plan to avoid that? Yeah. Once I'm done competing in open, I don't think by then my body, like, I say that now, but I don't see myself doing that because once I'm done. What's on record now? Huh? Because you just said it, so it's on record now. Yeah, like because once I do all I want to do, like I said, the next 4 or 5 years, whatever, I don't think I'll really have the itch to come back like 5-10 years later when I'm a master's. Because it's just different tiers, you know, like it's kind of like sub-teen, teen, junior, sub-master, master, then whatever even comes after that. So I don't think if whatever I did masters, it would never live up to what I did in my mind in open. Because like I said, masters in a way is a smaller pool compared to open. And obviously, in my opinion, it seems like a lot of people, obviously there's plenty of people who are doing it 20, 30 years, but a lot of people just start later. So they don't have the mileage on their body who compete. And I feel like I'll have pretty good mileage by the time I'm 40. You know, I mean, I feel like I'm going to stay healthy and stuff, but I don't know if I could still do it anyway, but I don't think I'd even want to because what do I have to prove at that point, you know? I don't think like doing anything in masters would really give me any fulfillment, if that makes sense. Yeah. What's the plan after you retire from the military? I'm going to move back to the Northwest, and I won't say my full plan at this time, but I do want to get into coaching in some way or form, you know? So at least just test it out and see because I believe it'll be a good avenue to go to. But I'm moving back to the Northwest to Vancouver, Washington. So yes, are you? And I'm asking this only because there was some notes I had like in 2017. You went to a Subway and you couldn't afford the fucking sandwich because you were just broke, right? Yeah. So then you started to learn. Actually, tell that story that way. There's a little bit more context. So. Yeah. So back then I only had a debit card, and I learned real quick. You know, I only had a debit card. It was like 2017, and it was on base Camp Pendleton. It was the Subway on base Camp Pendleton. And I went to get a Subway, and I didn't check before. But I just assumed I had just enough money. It was a day or two before payday or whatever. But yeah, it's like I ordered a sub and the card declined. And I just sunk in my body. Like I was like, fuck, like this never happened to me before. And then like after a few seconds, she's just like, you know what? Like just, you're good. I was like, really? Like, but then once I got paid, I went back and paid like, you know, I was like, I wanted to, but yeah, it was just like, I never wanted to feel that ever again. You know, the hopelessness I don't have like, so from that point on, I've been better with budgeting and saving money. But like, that was one of those like, wow moments, you know, like it really. So the question would be is since that period of time and knowing that this transition is going to happen in October, have you positioned yourself a little bit better to be able to provide some, I don't want to say I'm going to say a backup plan because I think backup plans are smart. Yeah. I don't think. Well, this is the only way. So for a few months now and continually, so I'm saving between $600 and $700 every paycheck. So I'll have between $8,000 to $10,000 once I get out. So I'll have enough money where cushion. I'll have a cushion because that's one thing when you do, it's called a transition readiness seminar. When I did it my first enlistment, that's the one thing I said is like, you want to have enough money to where you get out 4 to 6 months worth of bills and rent and car payment because you don't know, like I said, you assume you have a job lined up, but you don't want to, you know, you got to make sure you have your ducks in a row. So I learned that. I still remember that vividly. So I've been
like I said, I'm doing that. And
so it's safe to say that you're not one of these guys that walks around thinking, you know, there's no backup plan. That there's
yeah, like I said, I'm all in on the pursuit of fitness in a way, but not I'd be dumb not to save some money. Cause like, and I've been saving 10% of my paycheck since I started a Roth IRA, and I'll keep doing that once I get out too. But yeah, like it was like mid to late last year, I was like, okay, like I was saving money here and there, but I was like, I need to like actively save a good part, like just to put me at ease for when I get out, to not feel like if I want to take a few weeks and just let it hit me, like, because I've been in the Marines almost 8 years, so I kind of want a period of time where I could just be like, wow, this, you know, it was great. That was an old chapter in my life. This is a new one, you know, like let it all process, you know, because I don't want to. I've known people who get out and they have to jump right into a job right away because they didn't have any money and they got bills to pay, and it's like they take the first available job that they can find, because that's just they got like a week or two to pay all the stuff off, and they haven't worked since they got out.
Yeah, I mean, being privileged and knowing what you want to do, that provides you time to build the momentum that you're going to need, you know, to do what you want to do, which I think you'll be very highly successful at, by the way. But it makes it a little bit easier than, you know, getting out and being like, fuck, you know, now I got to go find a plumbing job, you know, and try to do this and this and this. Now you're trying to do 3 things, you know, to be able to move forward. Any topics or questions you thought I was going to ask that I didn't bring up?
Let me think about this for a sec. There might have been 1 or 2 things, but honestly, I think we covered a lot of good stuff on the whole. Yeah, I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming out. You know, I appreciate it. We'll hang out more, train tomorrow, so there'll be some good stuff. You guys are listening. Actually, no, your contact info, right? Instagram's probably the best way to get a hold of you, right?
Yeah, my Instagram is Dan_Griggs, capital D, capital G, Dan_Griggs.
Yes, it will be in the description. Follow him. He doesn't post that much, but when he does post, it's worth posting. You definitely want to be following him as, you know, meets come around, but you want to be following him after he gets out of the military as well, you know, because the posting frequency will probably go up a little bit. And again, thank you for coming out, and all of you guys, we're done.